They were more or less the same as the souls at the Wall of Sorrows. However, I am certain that they looked even more miserable. It seems like his wrongdoings cannot be corrected at once, even with his execution. Shijio, I am sure you will be very occupied. Let me stay and help you. Qianling Yu quickly offered. Gu Shijio shook her head. There is no need. You need to finish your work in Tianju Hall. You should not spend too much time here, or else Gu Kanmo is going to punish you. Shijio, I can graduate from Tianju Hall at any time. Gu Kanmo told me last year that I could leave. Gu Shijio was bewildered. Did you stay to further your studies? Qianling Yu paused to gather his courage. No, I was waiting for you. Gu Shijio almost tripped. It was a starry night. Qian Linjia's eyes brightened up along with the stars. Although you were gone, you were still an undergraduate in Tianju Hall. If you were to show up, you would definitely go and see us there. I was worried that I would not be able to see you once I left. Gu Shijio pinched her lips into a thin line. Qianling Yu raised his hand to stop her from continuing. He refused to give her any chances of rejection. Shijio, I like you. Everyone in Tianju Hall knows this. If you did not break up with Di Fui, I would wish you the very best and stay out of your relationship. I would be your best friend. He hesitated to continue, but before Gu Shijio said anything, he continued, Don't worry. I know that you will not accept any man at this moment. I know you need time to recover, so I will not force you into anything, but I will wait. I will wait until the day that you decide to commit to another relationship. He pledged in all sincerity and confidence. Gu Shijio was stunned. She was moved, but she knew clearly that Qianling Yu was not the man for her. No matter how long he waited, she still would not fall for him. He would always remain as her best friend, for he could never be her lover. Gu Shijio truly felt that her heart was completely broken and assumed that she would remain unmarried for the rest of her life. She decided that she would not fall for anyone else ever again. Qianling Yu, don't wait for me, Gu Shijio said slowly. I will not fall for anyone else again. Anyway, you should go back to Tianju Hall to avoid any punishment. Immediately, she teleported and disappeared. Qianling Yu was surprised. He stood watching the empty streets. Regretfully, he smacked the back of his head in remorse. He should not have told her that. After the rejection, perhaps she would no longer keep him around as a friend. He had, unfortunately, ruined their friendship. Suddenly, he thought about what Mu Feng had told him, that a girl as extraordinary as Gu Shijio must only be matched to a man who is equally wise and with high social status. Qianling knew very well that Gu Shijio was surrounded by some men, including Di Fui, Rong Jialoa, Long Sai, Long Fan, and even the biggest villain of them all, Mo Zhao. Every single one of them was either a very noble or powerful leader. The worst one was an overlord. As for him, he was merely the eldest son from a noble family. The best that he could ever be was to become the leader of the family. He would not be able to compete with any of them, as the differences would be too vast. Like what Mu Feng had told him, a great man must be filled with great ambitions to conquer the world. He finally realized that he should have his own zealous goals. Mu Feng even mentioned to him that the Lord was interested in rebuilding the Haoyue kingdom and was now looking for the perfect candidate to be the future ruler. He told him that he should try it out and carve a niche for himself. Finally, Qian Linjia's heart was filled with the ambition to rule the kingdom. They were more or less the same as the souls at the Wall of Sorrows. However, I am certain that they looked even more miserable. It seems like his wrongdoings cannot be corrected at once, even with his execution. Shijio, I am sure you will be very occupied. Let me stay and help you. Qianling Yu quickly offered. Gu Shijio shook her head. There is no need. You need to finish your work in Tianju Hall. You should not spend too much time here, or else Gu Kanmo is going to punish you. Shijio, I can graduate from Tianju Hall at any time. Gu Kanmo told me last year that I could leave. Gu Shijio was bewildered. Did you stay to further your studies? Qianling Yu paused to gather his courage. No, I was waiting for you. Gu Shijio almost tripped. It was a starry night. Qian Linjia's eyes brightened up along with the stars. Although you were gone, you were still an undergraduate in Tianju Hall. If you were to show up, you would definitely go and see us there. I was worried that I would not be able to see you once I left. Gu Shijio pinched her lips into a thin line. Qianlingyu. Qianlingyu raised his hand to stop her from continuing. He refused to give her any chances of rejection. Shijio, I like you. Everyone in Tianju Hall knows this. If you did not break up with Di Fui, I would wish you the very best and stay out of your relationship. I would be your best friend. He hesitated to continue, but before Gu Shijio said anything, he continued, Don't worry. I know that you will not accept any man at this moment. I know you need time to recover, so I will not force you into anything, but I will wait. I will wait until the day that you decide to commit to another relationship. He pledged in all sincerity and confidence. Gu Shijio was stunned. She was moved, but she knew clearly that Qianlingyu was not the man for her. No matter how long he waited, she still would not fall for him. He would always remain as her best friend, for he could never be her lover. Gu Shijio truly felt that her heart was completely broken and assumed that she would remain unmarried for the rest of her life. She decided that she would not fall for anyone else ever again. Qianlingyu, don't wait for me, Gu Shijio said slowly. I will not fall for anyone else again. Anyway, you should go back to Tianju Hall to avoid any punishment. Immediately, she teleported and disappeared. Qianlingyu was surprised. He stood watching the empty streets. Regretfully, he smacked the back of his head in remorse. He should not have told her that. After the rejection, perhaps she would no longer keep him around as a friend. He had, unfortunately, ruined their friendship. Suddenly, he thought about what Mu Feng had told him, that a girl as extraordinary as Gu Shijio must only be matched to a man who is equally wise and with high social status. Qianlingyu knew very well that Gu Shijio was surrounded by some men, including Di Fui, Rong Jiao, Long Sai, Long Fan, and even the biggest villain of them all, Mo Zhao. Every single one of them was either a very noble or powerful leader. The worst one was an overlord. As for him, he was merely the eldest son from a noble family. The best that he could ever be was to become the leader of the family. He would not be able to compete with any of them, as the differences would be too vast. Like what Mu Feng had told him, a great man must be filled with great ambitions to conquer the world. He finally realized that he should have his own zealous goals. Mu Feng even mentioned to him that the Lord was interested in rebuilding the Haoyue kingdom and was now looking for the perfect candidate to be the future ruler. He told him that he should try it out and carve a niche for himself. Finally, Qianlingyi's heart was filled with the ambition to rule the kingdom. It was all quiet during the night. Gu Shijio sat meditating on the bed. It had been an hour and a half, but she still could not set her troubled heart at rest. It felt as though her chest had been emptied. She was very insecure at this moment. During the day, she could always keep herself busy to distract her from her own thoughts. At night, the alone time was what scared her the most. Her memories came all at once to haunt her. When she could not sleep, she would always sit up to meditate using the heart-calming spell. Di Fui once taught her a spell that could ease her mind in times of trouble. Now that their relationship was ruined, she refused to use the spell that he taught her. The heart-calming spell that she had been using recently was a method that she learned herself from books. Although it was not as useful as the one Di Fui told her about, it worked just fine. Usually, an hour of meditation was enough to calm her mind. She could easily get 4 to 6 hours of sleep. Due to the influence of the negative energy from the sorrowful souls, her internal circulation became extremely unsettled. She still could not calm herself down even after an hour of meditation. Suddenly, she spat out some blood when she opened her eyes. She found her heart thumping really hard. She heaved a sigh and stopped meditating. She decided to take a stroll in her backyard, instead to enjoy the cold night breeze. There, she sat for an hour. Since she could not sleep, she started to think about the souls that she had just expiated. There seemed to be a growing number of sorrowful souls in town. In addition to the 4 souls that she faced just now, she had expiated a total of 320 souls in the past 10 days. The souls became gradually tougher and stronger. Was it a consequence of the fake celestial masters, or was there someone who was secretly playing some dirty tricks? Although the fake celestial masters had been executed, the number of accomplices that he left behind must not be ignored. Some were apparent. Others were in the dark. The apparent accomplices were easy to get rid of, as long as she followed the sequence of their names that she had in hand. As for those in the dark, there was no way she could target them all at once. She could only find them out one by one. She tried to contact Li Mengxia. Li Mengxia was as energetic as always. She immediately reported to Gu Shijiu about the dregs from the fake celestial masters. They talked for a while, but Li Mengxia never asked her about the affairs between her and Di Fui. As the leader of the Inning Association, she would certainly have received the latest news about their affairs. She knew what happened between them. She knew Gu Shijiu was not the kind of person who needed unnecessary comfort. What she needed was a little chat. Today, Li Mengxia was unusually patient. Usually, she would only talk about her matters very briefly. When they talked fast. At the beginning of their conversation, she was her usual self. However, after a few minutes into the conversation, she started to behave differently. Her tone changed and became more attractive. It was a calming voice in the void of an empty night. She even started to sing a song that she had recently learned. She continued to sing pleasantly like a lullaby. Gu Shijiu was not sleepy at first, but as the conversation went on, her sleepiness became gradually unbearable, so she returned to her room and continued to talk in the comfort of her bed. Slowly, but surely, she fell asleep. From the other end of the directed audio spell, Li Mengxia continued to talk, but received no response. Puzzled, she asked, "Shijiu, are you asleep?" Gu Shijiu was already sleeping, so there was no answer. The directed audio spell flickered in her hand. Lights came through and surrounded her like a halo. The directed audio spell flickered in her hand. A soft light came through and surrounded her like a halo, as though someone was gently putting her to sleep. From the other side of the directed audio spell, Li Mengxia sat on her bed. She seemed to be a little shaken, so she gently patted her chest to calm herself. Then, she looked out of the window with eyes full of grudges. She was a person with a regular life. She was already sleeping, but was awakened by Gu Zijia's sudden call, so she got up and talked with her about her accomplishments and the recent events. As their conversation went on, she became more and more energetic. While she was still enthusiastically engaged in the call, someone suddenly emerged from the window and took away the directed audio spell from her hand. Even though Li Mengxia behaved a little manly, she was, after all, a lady who was still unmarried. She was utterly shocked by the sudden entrance of a stranger into her room, so shocked that she almost attacked the person. Luckily, she was able to see the face of the stranger before doing so. That stranger was none other than Di Fui. She could not put the situation into words. Blankly, she looked at him, not knowing what to say. With a finger on his lips, Di Fui signaled her to keep quiet instead. Li Mengxia did as told and remained silent. Then, she watched as he turned and disappeared from her room. She did not know where he went. Li Mengxia had always known that he was a man too profound to be understood completely. However, it was the first time for her to experience such a random encounter with him tonight. She sat contemplating it. Suddenly, she looked down and was reminded that she was still in her pajamas. The pajamas were Gu Zijia's latest design for her, saying that it was the perfect fit for her body shape. The design was very feminine and comfortable, so she sent it to her tailor to produce another set. The pajamas were very modern. The texture was light, see-through, thin, and airy. Moreover, it was able to exude the feminine quality of being sexy. The first two buttons in front were open, revealing most of her bare breasts. It was a very sexy scene to look at. Before she slept, she took a careful look in the mirror and was impressed by how feminine she could be. She thought that she looked stunning. However, now she only wanted to cry. When she could finally be sexy, Celestial Masters was the one who witnessed it all. If another fine gentleman saw what he was not supposed to, she would not let him go and make him responsible for what he did. She would take the opportunity to get herself married to the gentleman. However, the man she had to face now was Celestial Masters. She dare not and could not do so. She was a little frustrated, so she buttoned up her front and buried herself in her blanket. Bewildered, she could not think of the reason for Celestial Master, Zwa, to take away her directed audio spell. Did he want to talk to Shijio? Was he trying to fix their broken relationship? The relationship between Gu Shijio and Di Fui was a little confusing to Li Mingxia. She recalled that Gu Shijio and Di Fui were somehow entangled. The incidents that happened after they escaped the Forbidden Land became even more confusing to her, as she did not remember anything about Gu Shijio being together with Di Fui. As far as she was concerned, they worked together once. They seemed to be fond of one another, but never publicized it. The relationship seemed like a myth that no one knew. Li Mengxia's instincts made her believe that Gu Shijio was deeply and truly in love with Di Fui. She could barely understand what Di Fui was thinking, so she concluded that he must be the one who had forsaken her love. Hence, she held a little grudge against him. Wei finally appeared and took away the directed audio spell. Her hope reignited. Did Di Fui regret his actions? Was he trying to fix the relationship? Gu Shijio was a very determined woman. She would still uphold her sense of pride, regardless of the depths of love that she had for him. When she cared for someone in that manner, she would love him wholeheartedly. But when she decided to give him up, there would be no turning back. She was not someone that he could summon and dismiss at will. It would be very difficult for him to win her heart back. While Li Mingxia was still deep in her thoughts, she could tell that the light in her room became dimmer. It was Di Fui. He reappeared at the side of her bed again. She wanted to rise from her bed, but was dejected at the thought of her pajamas, so she returned into the comfort of her blanket. "Master," she remarked in an embarrassed tone. She thought to herself, "Master, even though I act manly, I am still a woman. Will you please knock the door every time you visit?" Di Fui was wearing his mask, so Li Mengxia could only see his dark eyes through the holes. He threw the directed audio spell back to Li Mengxia, and she quickly picked it up from her side. Di Fui flicked his sleeves gently, and gleams of seven-colored rays suddenly appeared to wrap her up. A few moments later, there was no sign of Di Fui anywhere in the room. Li Mingxia was still in her bed. She stared blankly at the directed audio spell. She could barely remember what she was doing then. She recalled that she was having a chat with Gu Shijio. The more they talked, the more tired she became, so she ended the call. She could somehow feel that she had lost some parts of her memory, but was not quite sure what the memory was about. Li Mengxia proceeded to rub her temples to calm her troubled mind. Blankly, she stared into the void. Soon, she decided not to care about it anymore, dismissing it entirely. She yawned. Determined to leave the incident behind, she proceeded to keep her directed audio spell and go to bed. It was the first time for her to sleep so well. The deep sleep had also prevented her from having any dreams. She woke up feeling completely energetic the next day. It was indeed a good rest. She took a look in the mirror and realized that her dark circles were gone. Her complexion seemed better than yesterday. She checked her health and realized that her restless condition was all right now. Her blood circulation had been greatly improved, like she had just been through a massage session. Relieved, she took out the directed audio spell and was immediately delighted. She did not expect Li Mengxia's voice would turn out well as a lullaby, especially a song. Even though the song was a little out of tune at certain parts, her voice came like waves of highs and lows. The song entered the system of her body through her ears and circulated along with the flowing blood. It worked wonders by eliminating her uneasiness and calming her troubled mind. She had already memorized the song that Li Mengxia sang to her the night before. The next time she was sleepless, she would request for the singer in her residence to perform for her. One of the many servants in her residence was a singer. She had a great voice and was a fast learner. She could learn anything almost immediately. Her voice closely resembled the recital of the Sanskrit that could bring about steady waves of joy and tranquility to her audience. Gu Shijio sat on a lazy chair and watched as she performed. Frankly, the singer could sing better than Li Mengxia, but Gu Shijio could somehow feel that something was missing. She requested the singer to practice more for the future. While she was still discussing the key points of the song, the arrival of an imperial edict was announced. Rong Jialao had been sending her more and more imperial edicts as of late, So Gushijio no longer regarded the imperial edict as a matter to be taken seriously. She thought that the imperial edict was an order for her to expiate more sorrowful souls of their sins. Little did she know that it was actually an official announcement of her promotion. Chapter 16:01 Gushijio was promoted to be the National Celestial Master. Rong Jalua even built her a private residence. The officer who came to make the announcement was radiating with a big smile when he invited her to visit the private house, saying that the place was built secretly under the emperor's order and that it was meant to be a surprise. Gushijio was puzzled. It was commonly known that there were two celestial masters in the Facian Kingdom, who were Celestial Masters Wa, Di Fui, and Celestial Master Yu, Tian Jiue respectively. Both of their statuses in the kingdom were on an equal share of honor. Certainly, due to his high profile, Di Fui became more commonly known to the people. He was assumed to be more powerful than Tian Jiue. When people talked about the Celestial Master, they would think of Celestial Masters Wa immediately. Celestial Master had become a sacred name in popular belief. When Rong Jalua suddenly conferred the title of National Celestial Master on Gushijio, her status must be presumably predominant over both Celestial Masters Wa and Celestial Master Yu. Could the people accept it? Rong Jialuo's conferment would undoubtedly push her to the apex of her achievement. At the same time, she would also become an easy target for public criticism. Gushijio overthought about it. When she was finally conferred with the title, a bumper audience celebrated her success with an eager enjoyment. Where her car moved slowly through the crowds, people constantly cheered for her. It was all very happening. They called out her name loudly and proudly by addressing her as the National Celestial Master 3. The crowd was entirely delighted by her presence. They joyously sang and danced in celebration. It seemed like her conferment was of popular approval. Gushijio looked down from the heights of her car, and all she could see were the joyous faces of the people. They adored her. A loud voice emerged from the crowd. All of us should bow before the National Celestial Master. She will soon be the guardian for us all. Her grace will keep the people of the Facian Kingdom safe. That's right. She is the one who resisted and put down the rebellion of the fake Celestial Masters Wa. She is the one who expiated the sins of countless souls. She is the hope for all of us to have a good life. She fully deserves the title of National Celestial Master. The excitement continued. One man started to kneel. The surging crowds addressed to the call and kneeled as well. They greeted her like how they used to greet Di Fui. Gushijio fell into a trance. She felt as though she had just replaced him. She watched as the people kneeled sincerely before her. Her excitement sent blood pulsing through her veins. For the first time, she was motivated to protect the people. The people's support became her greatest pillar. She wanted to protect the people and the land where they lived. She looked up into the sky. It was a good day of warm breeze and light clouds. The good day made her sorrow seem less significant. She heaved a sigh of relief. At first, there was no sense of belonging for her existence in the world, so there was no direction for her to work on. However, in the people's loving eyes, she could somehow find her position. She finally realized that her life lied entirely in her own decision and that it should not only be restricted to her love affairs. Even with her loss of love, she still had her friends, her family, and the people who adored her. The people's adoration for her was not an odd thing at all. She had been too heartbroken to realize that what she had been doing was an act to build up her prestige and credibility. Celestial Master Zui used to be the one with the highest prestige. However, after the incident with the fake Celestial Masters Wa, people started to lose faith in him and became intuitively intimidated by his presence. Furthermore, his whereabouts had been too profound to be understood. Di Fui would come and go as he pleased. It would sometimes take years before he showed himself. His presence was not exactly favorable to the people right now, so the perception of his achievements worsened as days went by. Gushijio came with a force too strong to be neglected. She did not only manage the issues with the fake Celestial Masters Wa, expiate the sorrowful souls of their sins, and save the life of the Emperor, Rong Jialua, she also obliged to every plea from the people in trouble. She was a savior of the people for guiding them out of their miseries. The people appreciated her in their hearts for what she had done for them, so the respect that they had for her grew stronger and stronger. They adored her very much. In their opinion, her prestige continued to surpass celestial master's wa. Therefore, her conferment as the national celestial master was exactly what the people hoped for. Their support for her was genuine. When the news of her latest conferment became widespread, all her friends came to congratulate her. Some of the first ones were her friends from the Forbidden Land. Then, her friends from Tianju Hall came as well. Others were the Heaven's Gift disciples. Lastly, the King of the Mermaids, Lan Yaoguang, showed up too. For 3 consecutive days, her residence was an unprecedentedly happening place, full of guests and carriages. Gu Shitian made his way back to her residence as well. He was a general who had been in the political world for a long while, so his hospitality for her guests was unquestionably good. He would not want to embarrass her daughter. Luo Xinglan was there with both her sons. She could not care less about Gu Ziyishan's presence. Nonetheless, she was willing to take part as Gu Zijia's housekeeper to manage the household. She did not come alone. Some of her disciples came along with her. The disciples were her loyal followers, so they would certainly treat Gu Shijia well. Although the establishment of Gu Zijia's residence was carried out on a short notice, everything was in good order and well arranged. As for Luo Zhanyu, he spent 3 days in Gu Zijia's residence. Along with the rest of the group from the Forbidden Land, their roles were to be Gu Zijia's guardians by her side. Gu Shijia, as the master of the residence, was not very occupied. She only had to entertain the guests who came to celebrate her success. If she refused to see them, she could always count on Gu Xietian to host the guests on her behalf. Perhaps Rong Jialuo truly intended to elevate her potential. The residence that he built for her was even more extravagant than the residences of Celestial Master Zhua and Celestial Master Yu. The architecture of the residence was completed with wide roof trusses and a distinguished design for the halls. The surroundings were imbued with a sense of calm and serenity. In the yard, there was a small bridge over the flowing stream. A sense of considerable ingenuity was employed in the design of the pavilion. Gu Shijia took a stroll around the residence to enjoy different views. Rong Jialuo had indeed put in a lot of effort in the construction of her residence. The aesthetic of the place was comparable to that of the Grand View Garden, which was illustrated in the classic masterpiece Dream of the Red Chamber. The scenes shifted from corner to corner as she moved on. Every part of the view was a picturesque landscape of supreme elegance along with a quaint old charm. The eunuch, who had been following her, smiled and took the opportunity to please her. National Celestial Master, the place is entirely designed by the Emperor himself. Are you pleased with the result? She did not expect Rong Jialuo to have such an obstinate determination in the design of the place. Gu Shijia nodded in approval. I'm very much happy. Please thank the Emperor for me. The eunuch smilingly agreed. The residence had a man-made lake. Willows of tender green along the lake swung gently in the breeze. The pavement along the shore of the lake was covered in multicolored stones. At the end of the road, there was a vast area of bamboo groves. The soughing of the wind in the canopy of bamboo branches could be heard from afar. Gu Shijia was strolling along the shore to enjoy the lake view. The place seemed familiar, like she had probably been there in the old days. She thought about it and was reminded by a sudden realization. She then turned to the eunuch to seek for his opinion. Did this residence used to belong to the 8th prince? The eunuch smiled apologetically and explained, Your eyes are sharp. Indeed, the place used to be the 8th prince's residence. 8 years ago, the property was confiscated when the 8th prince was found to be guilty of treason. However, the place is indeed a geomantic and treasured site, so the emperor was unwilling to gift this place to anyone. 2 years ago, the emperor disapproved of the fake celestial master's request to build his residence here. Unfortunately, just last year, the residence caught fire and most of the buildings turned into ashes. It made the emperor's heart ache to see such waste. After the execution of the fake celestial masters, the emperor quickly ordered for the re-establishment of the place, but to a larger scale. He purposely turned this place into the National Celestial Masters Mansion. The eunuch continued to tell her the brief history of the place. Gu Shijio nodded to everything he said. It was no wonder that the area seemed so familiar to her, as it turned out to be an old friend's place. Back in the days, the 8th prince and Gu Shijio were close friends. She visited his residence a few times. They even took a stroll together along the shore once. Rong Che, the 8th prince, was a man of great talents, considerably an epitome in art and poetry. He treated her well and was indeed a good friend in her need. Who would have thought that he was actually the reincarnation of Mo Zhao? The good old days were still vivid in her mind, like the stroll that they had together along the lake. The memory of Rong Che was like a reflection in the water, beautiful but evanescent. There was no way they could go back to the time. While Gu Shijio was still overwhelmed with the reminiscences, someone came to notify her about the arrival of her guests. Celestial Masters and Celestial Master, you have come to congratulate you. Gu Shijio was slightly surprised to hear about the arrival of Di Fui. As a new Celestial Master, Gu Shijio had no choice but to make her appearance to welcome the arrival of Celestial Masters and Celestial Master Yu. Attracted by the fame of both Celestial Masters, the people had come all the way to her residence to watch the scene of bustle. When Gu Shijio showed up at the door, it was already crowded with a big audience. Also, the carriages of Di Fui and Tianjiyue had just arrived. As usual, Di Fui arrived in his typical ship, which was off Charming Blue. On board, there were the 4 messengers in every corner. A female servant took the lead to strew flowers on his path. It was the same display of splendor like the first time they met. Tianjiyu's style was humbler. He arrived with the help of a giant bird. It was strange to see the giant bird carrying another elegant carriage behind it. Tianjiyue only had 2 children by his side as his servants. They were the ones who guided the carriage. Unlike Di Fui, he did not require many people to pave his path. Both groups landed simultaneously. Gu Shijio fixed her eyes at them smilingly as they slowly threaded on air. She did not let her emotions show. Ever since the breakup, it was the first time for her to see Di Fui in about 2 weeks. Di Fui was still wearing his signature purple robes with a mask. The mask concealed his face entirely, leaving only his bright eyes. Their eyes met. His eyes curved slightly as he spoke. Miss Gu, congratulations on your conferment as the National Celestial Master. Gu Shijio smiled at him and answered decently, thank you. Tianjiyue, on the other hand, changed his signature attire from the usual cool black into a suit of pale gray robes. The color complemented his handsome appearance. Immediately after the landing, he joined his hands together in salute and greeted Gu Shijio. Shijio, I am late. Congratulations. Gu Zijia's smile seemed sincere this time. Thank you very much. She seized him up before commenting, you are finally freed from your isolated training. You look great. Tianjiyue was not wearing a mask. His complexion was rather pale, but he still looked cool. When he smiled, it was as charming as the plum blossoms. He pointed at the elegant white carriage that was behind him and continued, to celebrate your conferment, I hereby present to you this carriage as a token of congratulation. The entire structure of the carriage was carved from a piece of smooth, pure white jade. The design of the exterior was simple and neat, covered with carvings of the clouds. A flock of egrets lied above the clouds as they split across the sky. The roof of the carriage was decorated with a few bells that were made from pink crystals. The entire interior looked unadorned and clean. The addition of the pink crystal bells complemented the carriage by providing it a sense of elegance. Gu Zijia's wind caller was very surprised. It cheered and rushed towards it. The wind caller was already a majestic beast of level 8. Its appearance was all white with a silver halo. It rushed to the front and tied itself to the carriage by using a spell. It was as though the carriage was specially made for it. The silver carriage and the silver beast were indeed a perfect match, complementing one another. The crowd cheered in a chorus. Tianjie was pleased with the sight. Shijio, take a look inside and see if you like it. Gu Shijio certainly would not reject the request. She thanked him and went straight into the carriage. The interior was even more delicate. It was not entirely sumptuous, but very practical. There was enough space for her to sit or lie down comfortably. She could meditate, write, or read in the carriage. It was not very spacious, but was complete with soft carpets and comfortable seats. The design was authentic and comfortable. When Gu Shijio was in the carriage, she felt calm, as though she had just returned to her bedroom in her comfort zone. There were many gifts there. As a courtesy, most of the presents were very precious. Others were some of the rarest treasures one could ever find. However, Tianjiu's gift was the only thoughtful one. It might not be as precious as her other gifts, but it was truly her favorite. Gu Shijio really liked the carriage. She got out from the carriage and thanked Tianjiu again. She had to show him how much she liked the gift. Tianjiu was relieved. I'm glad that you like it. Tianjiu was not only a celestial master, he was also an expert in making exquisite crafts. He must have isolated himself for some time to make the carriage. Gu Shijio was a little touched by his kind gesture. Although Gu Shijio was not very close with Tianjiu, he had always been very kind to her. He had a heart of gold, even though he seldom smiled. He was also a very caring man. Difui stood aside and watched their interaction. He had not spoken with Gu Shijio ever since he came. Briefly, she thanked him once, and that was all. She did not even bother to look at him after that. She was indeed a woman with an outburst of enthusiasm. When she loved someone, she would love him entirely. When she decided to give up on a relationship, she would give it up entirely, too. He would be nothing but another passerby to her. Difui looked away and tried to hide the pain in his eyes. He coughed. Miss Gu, I have a gift for you, too. He made a hand sign, and Mu Feng unwillingly came forward to present her a purple wooden box. In the box lied a Ganoderma that must be at least 500 years old, which was a very valuable herb. The gift was an appropriate one. A gift as valuable as that must be coming from someone as noble as him, but it was not a very spectacular one as compared to Tianjiu's. The crowd was a little disappointed upon seeing Difui's gift. They expected more from Celestial Master Zhua. They thought that the gift from a mysterious man must be a unique one, but it was nothing special. They started to feel bad for Gu Shijio. After all, Gu Shijio was the one who settled the incident for him with regards to the fake Celestial Master Zhua. She had even saved the 4 messengers and expiated the tens of thousands of sorrowful souls at the Wall of Sorrows. She fought hard battles and wiped out the disgrace from Celestial Master Zhua's name. Celestial Master Zhua had certainly owed her a debt of gratitude, so this was exactly the time for him to show her some appreciation. Chapter 1605. No one ever thought he would only send a 500-year-old Ganoderma lucidum. The crowd went berserk. When a minister had a birthday, he sent a 1,000-year-old ginseng, which is more effective than this Ganoderma lucidum. It seems that Celestial Master Zhua is still unhappy with a marriage incident so many years ago. It might be because he is uncomfortable that she holds a higher position than him now. So he did it deliberately to upset her. Now we know he is such a piker. People were making various assumptions and paid close attention to Gu Shijio as they wanted to see how she would react. Gu Shijio smiled and said, "Thank you, Celestial Master Zhua." She waved, and Luo Zhanyu came over to her side and took the box. Luo Zhanyu had an angry facial expression. As a doctor, he could tell whether it was a quality Ganoderma lucidum at his first sight. The Ganoderma lucidum did not even have good coloration, even though it was 500 years old. Its value was perhaps not even comparable with a 50-year-old Ganoderma lucidum. This jerk did this on purpose to humiliate my sister, Luo Zhanyu shouted. Though it's not a good Ganoderma lucidum, perhaps by mixing it with some other herbs, it could be refined to some small recovery pellets and be given to minions. Thank you, Celestial Master Zhua. A small recovery pellet was the most common medicine pellet, which even the most ordinary soldiers could own. Luo Zhanyu did not want his sister to be mistreated, and so he spoke out in public. The crowd booed again, and the sense of discontent in everyone's hearts got heavier by then. Gu Shijio was also an expert in medicine, and she could tell the same result. However, she did not expect Luo Zhanyu, who always behaved in a low-profile manner, would make such a scene in public. She sighed in her heart, knowing that what he did was for her, but bringing the issue to the public had set her in a difficult position too. They used to love each other so much. Now, they were not even a passersby to each other. She finally knew his true colors. She thought he would at least have some feelings for her, as he took her as a substitute for Lan Jinka. But this was unexpected. Did he hate her for taking away the body of his beloved? Was this his form of revenge? Did he mean to prove that he had no feelings for Gu Shijio, as she was not Lan Jinka? She experienced the pain like someone sewing silk to her heart. Her heart was stitched so tightly that it suffocated her, while the sorrow spread over her chest and penetrated her limbs as well as her bones, and that made her sore at the mouth and throat. She tried hard to remain silent and did not speak again. She wanted to say a few words, but it felt like there was an egg stuck in her throat, and she could not say anything. She tried her best to suppress the inexplicable heat in her eyes, to prevent herself from crying. If someone else did this to her, she would most likely smile and walk away. But in this case, damn it, she could not take it with ease. She was still in grief, and she hated herself for still caring for him. It took just a little movement from him to make her fragile and wounded heart to be affixed with new scars. She kept herself calm and left no chance for others to turn this into a joke. Even though she felt like she was bleeding from within, still, she kept her smile on face as usual. It was charming and beautiful. Nobody could realize she was different, not even Mufone. After the occasion, people had a new impression of Celestial Master Zhua. Unfortunately, it was not to his benefit. No one ever thought he would only send a 500-year-old Ganoderma lucidum. The crowd went berserk. When a minister had a birthday, he sent a 1,000-year-old ginseng, which is more effective than this Ganoderma lucidum. It seems that Celestial Master Zhua is still unhappy with the marriage incident so many years ago. It might because he is uncomfortable that she holds a higher position than him now. So he did it deliberately to upset her. Now we know he is such a piker. People were making various assumptions and paid close attention to Gu Shijio as they wanted to see how she would react. Gu Shijio smiled and said, "Thank you, Celestial Master Zhua." She waved, and Luo Zhanyu came over to her side and took the box. Luo Zhanyu had an angry facial expression. As a doctor, he could tell whether it was a quality Ganoderma lucidum at his first sight. The Ganoderma lucidum did not even have good coloration even though it was 500 years old. Its value was perhaps not even comparable with a 50-year-old Ganoderma lucidum. This jerk did this on purpose to humiliate my sister, Luo Zhanyu shouted. Though it's not a good Ganoderma lucidum, perhaps by mixing it with some other herbs, it could be refined to some small recovery pellets and be given to minions. Thank you, Celestial Master Zhua. A small recovery pellet was the most common medicine pellet, which even the most ordinary soldiers could own. Luo Zhanyu did not want his sister to be mistreated, and so he spoke out in public. The crowd booed again, and the sense of discontent in everyone's hearts got heavier by then. Gu Shijio was also an expert in medicine, and she could tell the same result. However, she did not expect Luo Zhanyu, who always behaved in a low-profile manner, would make such a scene in public. She sighed in her heart, knowing that what he did was for her, but bringing the issue to the public had set her in a difficult position too. They used to love each other so much. Now, they were not even a passersby to each other. She finally knew his true colors. She thought he would at least have some feelings for her, as he took her as a substitute for Lan Jinka. But this was unexpected. Did he hate her for taking away the body of his beloved? Was this his form of revenge? Did he mean to prove that he had no feelings for Gu Shijio, as she was not Lan Jinka? She experienced the pain like someone sewing silk to her heart. Her heart was stitched so tightly that it suffocated her, while the sorrow spread over her chest and penetrated her limbs as well as her bones, and that made her sore at the mouth and throat. She tried hard to remain silent and did not speak again. She wanted to say a few words, but it felt like there was an egg stuck in her throat, and she could not say anything. She tried her best to suppress the inexplicable heat in her eyes, to prevent herself from crying. If someone else did this to her, she would most likely smile and walk away. But in this case, damn it, she could not take it with ease. She was still in grief, and she hated herself for still caring for him. It took just a little movement from him to make her fragile and wounded heart to be affixed with new scars. She kept herself calm and left no chance for others to turn this into a joke. Even though she felt like she was bleeding from within, still, she kept her smile on face as usual. It was charming and beautiful. Nobody could realize she was different, not even Mufong. After the occasion, people had a new impression of Celestial Master Zhua. Unfortunately, it was not to his benefit. Out of courtesy, Gu Shijio invited both masters to take a seat inside. Both celestial masters entered the mansion. Some attentive people had found that Gu Shijio had treated both masters differently when they entered the mansion. In respect to the white jade cabin, which was presented by Tian Jiyue, she managed to get Wind Caller to take it personally. Whereas the Ganoderma lucidum, which was given by Di Fui, had been thrown to Luo Zhanyu and subsequently shoved to the man next to him. Luo Zhanyu said, "Here, it's for you." The little minion did not seem to be interested in it and simply held it in his hand. Luo Zhanyu was not discreet with his actions. The people in front of him would definitely hear him. For this, Di Fui was a little stunned. Gu Shijio pretended she heard nothing and continued talking with Tian Jiyue. She acted like she did not care at all. All the people were so worried about Gu Shijio until they witnessed this scene. One who liked to insult others would eventually get a revert disgracing to himself. It was silent revenge from her. Great job. Tian Jiyue was stunned too. He took a glimpse at Di Fui and realized he did not remain stunned for too long before he got back to normal and began looking around the mansion. Such a great mansion. Master, are you going to take us for a tour? Gu Shijio remained silent, while Luo Zhanyu replied sarcastically, "I'm so sorry that our national celestial master is too busy to entertain you." He turned around and called a minion to come. "Gue Quan, please take Celestial Master Zhua for a tour." "Yes, sir. Celestial Master Zhua, this way please." Di Fui then shifted his sight to Gu Shijio. She smiled. Celestial Master Zhua, Gue Quan, is the geographical expert to the mansion. He can explain every little thing in the mansion. He is no doubt the best candidate to keep you company. Regardless of the purpose he came with, Gu Shijio did not want to be involved with him anymore. Certainly, she did not wish to be around him and ruin her day. Now that their relationship has ended, it was over. She hoped for the rest of her life that she could refrain from interacting with him again. She just wanted to carry on with her life. She did not want to bother about Di Fui anymore. Thus, she turned around and asked Tian Jiyue, who was beside her, "I realize the cabin is equipped with many mechanisms, and there are few things I'm not familiar with. Could you explain them to me?" Tian Jiyue looked at Di Fui. However, Di Fui turned away with Gue Quan as he remained silent, and proceeded to sightsee after taking a glance at both of them. There were a lot of complicated mechanisms inside the white jade cabin. Hence, Gu Shijio listened carefully as Tian Jiyue explained to her patiently. Tian Jiyue gave her a thorough demonstration of how to operate the cart. Then he said, "Come, you try it." Yes. Gu Shijio tried operating the mechanisms one by one. It was not difficult for her. Nevertheless, she was not in a good mood that day. Just when she was operating the second mechanism, a blade ejected from the machine and hurt her wrist. The blade was definitely different from the ordinary one she had seen. It was extremely sharp that her wrist artery was almost sliced in half as blood gushed out uncontrollably. Tian Jiyue, startled, and immediately grabbed her hand. "Let me see." Gu Shijio responded quickly and pulled her hand back immediately. She then sealed the acupoint to stop the bleeding and applied medicine to the wound right after that. Gu Shijio was swift and agile. She almost cured the wound in just a blink of an eye. She smiled as she heaved a sigh of relief. "I was just careless. No worries, I'm fine." Tian Jiyue gazed at her curvy eyelashes and her reddish lips. He realized that it seemed to have been no different from usual. However, her face was slightly pale. Perhaps it was because of the pain from the wound earlier. He sighed. The weapons from the compartment were supposed to shoot outward if it were operated accordingly. It could attack dozens of people at once like a hedgehog if they ever tried to attack the cabin. It was a black iron blade, and the blade was coated with poison. Hence, it must be excruciating for her. Tianjie might not feel bad for her as she screamed out of pain. However, the fact that she pretended to be strong has caused him a heartache now. Just shout if it's painful. I will not laugh at you. Tianjie sighed and continued. You do not have to hold it. This girl was so tough. Not sure if it was because of the mass bleeding or insecurity, but Gu's Ziggius eyelashes were flickering. She smiled instead of shouted out in pain. It is all right, just a small injury. It does not hurt at all. It was nothing compared to the heartbreaking experience she just endured. Apparently, the pain on her wrist helped her to focus better. The drugs she had with her nowadays were extremely magical because the bleeding stopped almost immediately after she applied the medicine. Besides that, it was only her flesh that was wounded, which was not as severe as cutting an artery. It might have seemed dangerous, but it was just a minor injury. She lightly flicked her wrists as she took a breath, and then continued experimenting with the mechanisms. Tianjie was nervously watching from beside her because he was afraid that she might get hurt again. This time, Gu Shizhou paid very attention, and she managed to master the essentials of the mechanisms without hurting herself again. While operating the mechanisms, Gu Shizhou also chatted with Tianjie and did not forget to ask him about the principles and essentials regarding its mechanical settings. Tianjie was kind enough to answer every question she asked. As long as the problems were related to the mechanism, he could explain excellently as though he has swallowed the user manual. Gu Shizhou finished asking all the possible questions she had. She could finally confirm that Tianjie made it for her. She had a bitter smile and wondered if she was trying to prove something to herself. She knew that she should rationally give up on Di Fui. Yet, she could not help her subconscious urge of trying to prove something even though every attempt had led her to disappointment. When the number of disappointment got greater, she somehow grew immune. As she instructed Gue Quan to take Di Fui for a stroll, she thought he would have left instantly based on his pride. However, it was beyond her expectation that he would proceed with the minion to visit her yard instead. He was a person seemingly undisciplined, yet actually thoughtful and always well strategized. A careless mistake would become a chance to be tricked. When she was his ally, she was always amazed by the way he deceived others, and she was often glad for not being his enemy. However, what was he going to do in her mansion? What was his main objective? Di Fui seemed to be in great spirits today. He wandered around the mansion without missing a single corner with the guidance of Gue Quan. When he was tired of walking, he would always ready himself a futon and had a chat with Gue Quan while taking a break. However, Gue Quan was secretly assigned by Luo Zhanyu to keep an eye on Di Fui to prevent him from playing any tricks. Therefore, Gue Quan paid very close attention at all times and maintained his supervision at every movement with his eyes widely opened. Gu Shizhou was swift and agile. She almost cured the wound in just a blink of an eye. She smiled as she heaved a sigh of relief. I was just careless. No worries, I'm fine. Tianjie gazed at her curvy eyelashes and her reddish lips. He realized that it seemed to have been no different from usual. However, her face was slightly pale. Perhaps it was because of the pain from the wound earlier. He sighed. The weapons from the compartment were supposed to shoot outward if it were operated accordingly. It could attack dozens of people at once like a hedgehog if they ever tried to attack the cabin. It was a black iron blade, and the blade was coated with poison. Hence, it must be excruciating for her. Tianjie might not feel bad for her if she screamed out of pain. However, the fact that she pretended to be strong has caused him a heartache now. Just shout if it's painful. I will not laugh at you. Tianjie sighed and continued. You do not have to hold it. This girl was so tough. Not sure if it was because of the mass bleeding or insecurity, but Gu's Ziggius eyelashes were flickering. She smiled instead of shouted out in pain. It is all right, just a small injury. It does not hurt at all. It was nothing compared to the heartbreaking experience she just endured. Apparently, the pain on her wrist helped her to focus better. The drugs she had with her nowadays were extremely magical because the bleeding stopped almost immediately after she applied the medicine. Besides that, it was only her flesh that was wounded, which was not as severe as cutting an artery. It might have seemed dangerous, but it was just a minor injury. She lightly flicked her wrists as she took a breath, and then continued experimenting with the mechanisms. Tianjue was nervously watching from beside her because he was afraid that she might get hurt again. This time, Gu Shijio paid very attention, and she managed to master the essentials of the mechanisms without hurting herself again. While operating the mechanisms, Gu Shijio also chatted with Tianjue and did not forget to ask him about the principles and essentials regarding its mechanical settings. Tianjue was kind enough to answer every question she asked. As long as the problems were related to the mechanism, he could explain excellently as though he has swallowed the user manual. Gu Shijio finished asking all the possible questions she had. She could finally confirm that Tianjie made it for her. She had a bitter smile and wondered if she was trying to prove something to herself. She knew that she should rationally give up on Di Fui. Yet, she could not help her subconscious urge of trying to prove something, even though every attempt had led her to disappointment. When the number of disappointment got greater, she somehow grew immune. As she instructed Gue Quan to take Di Fui for a stroll, she thought he would have left instantly based on his pride. However, it was beyond her expectation that he would proceed with the minion to visit her yard instead. He was a person seemingly undisciplined, yet actually thoughtful and always well strategized. A careless mistake would become a chance to be tricked. When she was his ally, she was always amazed by the way he deceived others, and she was often glad for not being his enemy. However, what was he going to do in her mansion? What was his main objective? Di Fui seemed to be in great spirits today. He wandered around the mansion without missing a single corner with the guidance of Gue Quan. When he was tired of walking, he would always ready himself a futon and had a chat with Gue Quan while taking a break. However, Gue Quan was secretly assigned by Luo Zhanyu to keep an eye on Di Fui to prevent him from playing any tricks. Therefore, Gue Quan paid very close attention at all times and maintained his supervision at every movement with his eyes widely opened. Published at 15th of February, 2019, 6 o'clock and 12 seconds a.m., Chapter 1608. 1608, when Di Fui asked him questions, Gue Quan pondered carefully before he answered them, because he was afraid he might blurt out something he would regret. Di Fui was figuratively knocking repeatedly on his door with a paper fan in his hand. After bombarding him with a series of questions, he suddenly asked, "Aren't you tired of leaving your eyes wide open?" Gue Quan was speechless. Di Fui tapped on Gue Quan's head. "Take a break if you're sleepy. You don't have to force yourself." Instantly, Gue Quan fell asleep on a rock. He had no idea how long he had fallen asleep. When he opened his eyes, he realized Di Fui was still sitting beside the lake nearby. He was busy fishing, and his dark purple robe was fluttering like a dancing butterfly. Gue Quan rubbed his eyes as he was slightly slow-witted. Subconsciously, he looked up to the sun and the sky. Perhaps he did not sleep for too long. It was probably just a short nap. "You're awake," Di Fui added, as though he had a pair of eyes at the back of his head. "You have nice fish in your mansion, huh? Let me bring a few back to make a stewed dish." Gue Quan remained silent as he began to make an assumption. Celestial Master Zwo must be thinking it was unworthy to give a Ganoderma as a gift just now, and now he wants to get something in return to cover his loss. Gue Quan took a glimpse at the fish basket beside him and noticed 2 fishes were swimming in there. As soon as Di Fui finished talking, he managed to get another fish. This time, it was a foot-long fat carp. Di Fui put the fish into the basket and got up after putting away his fishing rod. Gue Quan was curious. "You're done." He wished Celestial Master Zwo could stay there and continue fishing so that he would not wander around and Gue Quan himself would not be exhausted from following him. Moreover, it was still early. He should get another fish to make it an even number for good luck. Difui smiled. "I'm done." He stirred to tease the fat carp. However, the carp almost bit him. Thus, he flicked the head of the fat carp, and it immediately floated in the water. Gue Quan idled with his mouth slightly ajar after taking a glimpse at the fish. He realized the fish was full of sharp teeth like needles. He might have lost a piece of his flesh if he was bitten. How could it be a carp, then? It was a piranha. Why would piranha live in this lake? Usually, rich families would keep colorful fishes, goldfish, or beautiful carps in the lake as their pet. However, the carps in front of them very definite telemuted. One would definitely turn into a skeleton if he or she accidentally falls into the lake. What kind of fish is that? Were there many in the lake? Gue Quan asked. Sadly, Difui did not turn back at all. Why don't you jump in and find out by yourself? Gue Quan was speechless. He did not expect such horrible fishes were living in the lake. He must report to his superior so that precautions could be taken before anyone gets injured. Gue Quan glimpsed at Difui, who was walking far ahead with his robe fluttering in the wind. He realized Celestial Master Zwa had plenty of leisure time to wander around in someone else's courtyard as though taking a stroll in his own garden. Besides that, he even took away 3 fishes. By the way, were those fishes actually very valuable and were put into the lake by Master on purpose? Otherwise, Celestial Master Zwa might have made a good profit on that. He pondered and quickly called another minion nearby and told him of the incident. The minion was then sent to make a report to Luo Zhanyu and see whether they should get the fishes back. Difui glimpsed at Gue Quan, who hesitantly continued to follow him. You don't have you follow me around? I'm not going to steal anything from your house. Gue Quan smiled awkwardly. Celestial Master Zwa must be joking. I'm here to show you around. Published at 15th of February, 2019, 12:05 and 3 seconds p.m., Chapter 1609. 1609 Gue Quan smiled awkwardly. Celestial Master Zwa must be joking. I'm here to show you around. However, he took a glance at the basket of fish in Celestial Master Zwa's hand and grunted silently. You won't steal anything from my house. You just took away the fish from my house. The olive flounder is so fresh. It would be best served in a soup dish, while the Trachodermis fasciatus is best cooked steamed. Difui began to talk about fish. Gue Quan stared at the fish with numerous sharp teeth. How about this one? This is a phantom fish. They feed on flesh and blood. It's excruciating if you're bitten by it, and a human could be easily turned into a sorrow wraith if one is bitten to death. Gue Quan immediately shivered. Is it edible? Difui casually answered. Do you think I caught it just to release it? Gue Quan was speechless. He glimpsed at the fish again as it looked fresh and juicy. Perhaps it was delicious, and he planned to get a few and give it a try with his colleagues when they were free. 2 of them continued taking a stroll. Suddenly, they heard 2 female servants talking from behind some rocks. The white jade carriage is fantastic. I didn't expect Celestial Master you to spend so much this time. True, I've never seen such an amazing carriage before. It was only aesthetics. It had mechanisms too. The mechanisms were quite complicated. Our national Celestial Master is so intelligent, but she injured her wrist earlier. Bang! The basket in Difui's hand fell to the ground, and water spilled all over the place. Both of the female servants were shocked. Gue Quan was shocked too, and 3 pairs of eyes were looking at Difui. It's slippery. Difui looked at the struggling fishes in the basket. He immediately flicked his sleeve, and everything was restored again. 2 of the fishes automatically jumped into the basket as though they could recognize their habitat. However, the fat carp was very upset because it was about to head toward the lake. The fat carp was blocked by a huge green rock. It moved backward and suddenly leaped and bit on the green rock. In the blink of an eye, the huge rock was crushed into numerous pieces like a block of tofu, and the fat carp continued moving forward. Initially, Gue Quan and the 2 female servants were already frightened by Difui's power. However, they were again terrified by the ferocious fish. Difui ordered Gue Quan, kill it. kill the fish. He was an expert. Gue Quan stroked his sleeve and moved forward with a few big steps. When he was about to catch it, Di Fui quickly added, "Its scales are as sharp as a blade. You'll get a cut." Gue Quan quickly withdrew his hands and used the sword at his waist to get the job done. Bang! Countless sparks appeared. His sword did not manage to chop off the fish's head, but it broke and almost cut off his hand. Gue Quan was stunned. Di Fui immediately hinted, "We need fire to kill it." Gue Quan was quick in response. He immediately took out a lighter and burned the fish. Indeed, the fire was the fish's biggest enemy. The fish immediately produced a high-pitched sound as it was burned. Its body stopped moving after its eyes enlarged. Gue Quan finally heaved a sigh of relief. The fish was originally light gold in color. However, it had turned red after a short grill. Gue Quan wiped away the sweat on his forehead. He glimpsed at Di Fui as he was about to ask how should he manage the dead fish. The fish is very nutritious, and it promotes blood circulation. Since it's dead, the normal way of cooking it should be fine, said Di Fui. One of the female servants was excited. Since our master bled a lot earlier, why don't we make soup for her as a supplement? Published at 16th of February, 2019, 7:45 and 13 seconds a.m., Chapter 16, 10, another female servant nodded. Cool. She bent to pick up the fish. However, a wind passed by the ground, and the dead fish instantly disappeared. Both female servants were shocked, and they realized the dead fish had flown onto Di Fui's palm when they lifted their head to check. Di Fui said with a cold tone, "This fish is dirty now. Go and catch a new one for your master if you want to make soup for her." The fish disappeared again after a flick of his sleeve. No one knew whether it had been destroyed or he put it away. Quietly, he turned around and left. Gue Quan was stunned. Celestial Master Zhuo was such a difficult person to handle. So what now? Just get another one. Anyway, he had witnessed the method Di Fui used to catch the fish. It was nothing difficult. He would get a bigger and better one for his master. Celestial Master Yu did not stay at Gu Zijia's residence for a meal. He immediately left after showing Gu Shijio the correct method to use the carriage. When Gu Shijio sent him off, she was idling as she watched his departure, as though she was thinking about something. Suddenly, she seemed to sense something and turned around. Di Fui slowly walked over, followed by Gue Quan, who was jogging toward her behind Di Fui. Gu Shijio moved slightly backward to make way, and Di Fui had already taken a few steps ahead of her at this point. Gue Quan gasped as he ran forward. National Celestial Master Zhuo doesn't intend to stay for a meal. He asked me to excuse him on his behalf. Gu Shijio gazed toward Di Fui, and Di Fui also glimpsed at her this time. He was wearing a mask on his face. Hence, Gu Shijio could not see his expression. Besides that, his pupils were too dark to the extent that no one could predict his emotion. She was too tired to make assumptions anymore. Thus, she just nodded with an unremarkable smile. Celestial Master Zhuo always has a very tight schedule, so it's very common that he cannot stay for a meal. Celestial Master Zhuo, safe journey. She lifted her sleeve to thank him for visiting. After that, she entered her mansion without turning back at all. Di Fui reluctantly moved his gaze away and walked out of her mansion. Only Gue Quan sent him off, and the scene looked a little lonely. There was a crowd outside the door who just came for fun. They saw Gu Shijio send Celestial Master Yu off earlier. The citizens were somehow happy to see Di Fui alone and lonely when they saw that only a minion sent him off. Countless pairs of eyes were focused on him. They certainly enjoyed the show because it was very rare to see Celestial Master Zhuo get embarrassed. Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers were still waiting in the airship. Initially, they wanted to follow Celestial Master Zhuo when he entered the mansion. However, Di Fui secretly ordered them to stand by outside. Mu Feng and the rest secretly shook their head when they saw that Di Fui came out alone. He still had the guts to deliver the gift after dumping her. Besides that, it was such a lousy gift which only the Lord dared to give. Mufong could feel the heat on his face when he handed the gift earlier. Miss Gu was very considerate for not throwing the gift at his face. What else did he expect from her? In fact, Mufong was a little happy seeing the Lord get embarrassed. Certainly, he did not dare to show the excitement on his face. When he saw the Lord glimpse at him with his head up, he quickly stood up and bowed to welcome the Lord on board. The Lord was probably not in a good mood. He raised his head with an order. Release the drapes. Mufong remained silent, but he and the rest were confused. That was because the drapes would only be used during big events. Also, the Lord would only release the drapes when he needed to put on a show in front of the crowd. Usually, he would step on the 5-color drapes and leisurely board the ship. Published at 16th of February, 2019, 6 o'clock and 4 seconds, a.m., Chapter 1611. 1611, under normal circumstances, the drapes would accentuate the Lord's adroit kung fu skills. However, right now, Mufong thought that it would be better for the Lord to be humble under such embarrassing circumstances. He had better fly himself up. The 4 messengers did not dare to linger. Each of them flipped their sleeves, and 5-color drapes flew down from the ship and stretched underneath the Lord's feet. Then, the Lord flipped his sleeves, stepped onto the 5-colored cloths, and flew himself up. As he was about to reach the ship, Di Fuyi's body shook, together with the hearts of the 4 messengers. For a moment, Mufong believed that the Lord was going to step onto an empty spot and fall. When he was going to reach out and carry him, Di Fuyi's body flashed across him all of a sudden, and he was already on the ship. Mufong did not manage to carry him. Mufong had stretched out his hands in the air for a moment and took them back. Looking at Di Fuyi, who was already on the ship, he was confused. Was he distracted? Mufong took a step forward. "My lord." Di Fuyi acted like everything was orderly. He said to Mufong, "Start the ship." Mufong was unable to see the Lord's facial expression. Hence, he was unable to gauge whether something was wrong with the Lord. He could only follow his orders and start the ship. On their journey, he asked, "My lord, where are we going?" Celestial Master's was palace. Di Fuyi started meditating after saying that, without uttering even another sentence. Gu Shijio was sitting on the chair in the living area, while Gue Quan was standing below her, telling her everything about Di Fuyi's journey around the palace. Then, Gu Shijio realized that he had lingered about every conceivable corner of the palace. There was nowhere he paid extra attention to. He, in fact, looked like he was just roaming around. If there was something special to him, it would be how he was especially interested in the pond, from where he had caught 3 fishes. Of course, Gu Shijio was informed of the characteristics of the fishes. Gu Zijia's heart quivered. This place originally belonged to the 8th prince, Rong Che. It could also be seen as Missouri Zhao's place, since Rong Che was Mo Zhao's incarnation. Mo Zhao was the omen. An omen needed the malicious spirit's resentment to maintain its demonic power. Rong Che had never revealed his demonic power throughout his years being in the palace. He had never had any negative rumor spread about him. Gu Shijio suddenly suspected that there must be something in the pond. She ordered her servants to suck out all the water from the pond. The entire Celestial Master's palace became busy. Luo Zhanyu brought along with him a servant to help out by the pond. Gu Shijio wanted to help out as well, but was told by Luo Zhanyu that she should go back inside as she had been injured and should not come into contact with water. She had better rest. Luo Xinglan also personally made Gu Shijio some medicine to help her restore the iron in her blood. She sent them to her study room. With the company of her family members, her adorable pets, and her loyal servants, the atmosphere at the National Celestial Master's Palace could not be merrier. However, under such a merry and busy atmosphere, Gu Shijio felt a sense of loneliness, especially when the night fell. It would be another sleepless night tonight. Her wrist had been in great pain. The medicine she used was able to heal her wound, but was unable to eradicate the pain in her heart. She thought that her wrist would, at most, hurt for more than 4 hours. However, even after more than 4 hours, the pain did not seem to diminish. During the day, when she was occupied, she could still bear the pain by shifting her focus momentarily to other things. However, at night, when she was alone in her room, the pain became more excruciating. She turned herself about on her bed, finding it hard to fall asleep. After turning for about 2 hours, she could no longer lay herself down. Thus, she went to look for the white jade carriage instead. She looked into the cart, trying to examine the construction of the array. However, in less than half an hour, she heard the sound made by the jade bell on top of the cart in the wind, like a hypnotizing song, and she felt drowsy. She simply laid herself down in the car and gradually dozed off. It could be due to the pain in her wrist that she did not manage to sleep well. Her brows furrowed into a knot. Occasionally she would cry in pain, and drops of sweat would emerge out of the sides of her head. Moments later, after she fell asleep, a piece of wood on the top of the car slowly drifted off, revealing a jade tablet. The jade tablet was glowing, and the glow gradually covered her body. Within the glow was a person in purple who emerged by her side like a shadow. Published at 16th of February, 2019, 12:20 and 4 seconds p.m., Chapter 1612. 1612. The person dressed in purple was, in fact, Defui. He immediately held her slim wrist. Although he had been careful not to touch her wound, she still cried a little. It was clear from her brows that she was uncomfortable. In fact, sweat emerged from her forehead. "Pain," she uttered a word. He raised his hand to rub off the sweat from her forehead and uttered gently, "It won't hurt anymore in a minute, good girl." His voice was so gentle and hypnotizing. For 8 years, she had been used to seeking protection and warmth by his side. Although she was able to separate herself from him in the day, being indifferent towards him, her habits betrayed her in her sleep. She was thinking of relying on him, especially when she was in pain. Gu Shijio moved closer to the light, letting her little face rest on his thighs, and uttered another sentence. "Fui, it hurts, it hurts." He felt as if his heart was inundated. Defui lifted his arms to hug her, but he suddenly suppressed the urge and sighed. He unwrapped a cloth on her wrist using his fingertips. A red line was emerging on her snow-colored wrist, which was startling. He furrowed his brows slightly. She did not treat her wounds properly. She only applied recovery cream, but did not squeeze out the toxic blood from her body. That was why she was in such a pain. Her wound only looked like it had almost recovered on the outside. However, the toxic from the blade had been trapped inside her body, causing trouble beneath her skin. She was also a great doctor. Hence, it would be unlikely of her not to understand that. Was she deliberately trying to hurt herself? Or was she too preoccupied with something else that she overlooked that? Defui stared at the wound on her wrist and drifted off for a moment. Under normal circumstances, her condition would require him to cut open her wound again, squeeze out the toxic blood from within, and later bandage it, so that it could fully recover. However, cutting open her wound again would definitely shock her awake, and she would have to go through the excruciating pain again. He closed his eyes slightly, raised his hand, and pressed it against her wound. A 7-colored light emerged from his palm and shielded her wound. Pale purple blood oozed out slowly from her wound, while Defui's 7-colored light was working wonders on her wound. A moment later, the bump on Gu Zijia's wrist gradually flattened. On the other hand, Defui's hand swelled up a little. When he was done, his entire palm was swollen. He took a glance at it and could not care less. He looked at Gu Shijio again. It must be due to the persistent pain that her little face remained pale. Right now, her cheeks started to show a trace of redness, and her furrowed brows had loosened up as well. She was lying there dressed in a thin dress, out in the open. Suddenly, she turned her body and reached out her hand to hug something, but to no avail. Defui's gaze had elements of sorrow. Throughout their 8 years together, she had been used to sleeping in his embrace and having her arms around his waist, like a sloth reluctant to be separated from a tree. Right now, both of them had separated, but she did not manage to correct her habit. She was still used to having her arms around his waist in her sleep. He sat there without moving, observing as Gu Shijio would frown slightly after not being able to hug anything and would try again repeatedly. Di Fui grabbed a bolster by his side and put it within her embrace. Hence, she hugged the bolster tightly, pressing her face against the bolster. From her facial expression, it seemed that she had dreamed of something. Her eyelashes became wet, and a teardrop flowed down the corner of her eye. Published at 17th of February, 2019, 12:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1613. 1613, Di Fui suddenly moved his gaze away. As he turned, he disappeared. Even a rooted habit could change as one started to lose hope. She would need to be accustomed to a single life sooner or later. In Celestial Masters' palace, Di Fui sat like a Buddha along the balcony. His body trembled all of a sudden, and he gradually opened his eyes. He raised his arms and observed his swollen palms. He silently exercised so that he could remove the toxic which he had sucked out of her body. Droplets of dark purplish blood dropped to the ground. His forehead, that almost looked like a white jade now, had sweat emerging all over. It was obvious that removing the toxic from his body was quite painful. A moment later, the droplets of blood turned bright red, and he was done. Hence, he stood up. He tilted his head upward to look at the night sky for exactly 2 hours. The new stars shone brighter, while the old stars were dimmed, and at the southeast corner of the sky was a dark red star gradually displaying its light. Di Fui stared at the dark red star for a long time. He was anticipating something. He frowned slightly. The star of omen lit up again, heralding the rebirth of the demon. According to Di Fui's initial estimation, Emo Zhao would probably only be reborn 30 years later. However, the counterfeit celestial masters were rebelled and created a widespread malicious spirit, filling the land with resentment, hence accelerating Emo Zhao's recovery. However, perhaps it was good that he did so, because Di Fui would be able to seize the opportunity and remove him by himself. He could remove such a big trouble. He looked at the stars again. The star of the demon was situated in the southeast area of the night sky. It looked like the place that belonged to the Blue Fox tribe. It was weird. He could sense that Emo Zhao was about a few hundred meters away from him. But why did the constellation show that he was hiding in the southeast? Was it because he had overused his spiritual power, and somehow his senses were in disarray? He looked up to examine the dark red star again. It looked like Emo Zhao would not be able to create any trouble in half a year. Di Fui needed to get himself fully recovered within half a year to prepare himself for the stronger imminent thunderstorm. He went out of the balcony, and a mask automatically covered his face. He kicked Mu Feng, who was sleeping at the door, awake. "Get ready. Let's go back to Biwu Palace." Mu Feng was slow to react. "What? When? Now." My phone was speechless. He rubbed his eyes to make himself wide awake. "I will order the other 3 messengers. You come with me. Mu Lei should continue guarding the palace. Mu Yin should check on the Blue Fox tribe. Mu Jian should stay and guard the Celestial Master's palace. All of you should report to me right away if there's any abnormality." "Got it." Mu Feng was brave to ask another question. "My lord, should we send someone to look after Miss Gu?" Di Fui turned and walked away. "There is no need." Mu Feng pouted his lips behind him. The Lord would always send a random person to look after Gu Shijio in the dark, no matter where he was, never forgetting. This time he had given up entirely. As expected, the Lord could be so harsh sometimes. Mu Feng immediately did as told by the Lord. However, he also ordered Mu Jian to be aware of the conditions in Celestial Master's palace, so that he could settle some trouble for Gu Shijio beforehand. Mu Jian agreed. Gu Shijio slept soundly. When she woke up, the sun had risen up in the sky. She sat up and realized that he had been hugging a bolster to sleep. The bolster was elongated. Having it in her embrace was rather comfortable. She looked at the bolster, remembering that it had been a box when she went to sleep. What did she take it out? Had it been her natural habit of hugging something to sleep that made her sleepwalk and rummage through the box? Published at 17th of February, 2019, 6:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1614. 1614, Gu Shijio examined the inside of the carriage and did not see any traces of someone else entering. She shook her head. It seemed like she had either sleepwalked or forgotten what happened. She stared at the bolster blankly for a moment. She knew who she had taken the bolster to be last night. Sometime later, her palms suddenly pressed onto the bolster, and the bolster, which she had taken as her support in her sleep, crumbled into dust and disappeared. She needed to correct such a habit, even replacing it with a substitute if necessary. After destroying the bolster, she suddenly thought of something. She raised her wrist and looked at it. Before she slept, her wrist was in trembling pain, but now it did not hurt at all. She unwrapped the cloth on her wrist and realized that the wound was now only a fine line that was pale red, not even visible unless she paid enough attention. She froze for a moment and heaved a breath of air. It looked like the poison from a blade was not very strong. It was only enough to put her in pain until midnight. The cream she applied was enough to nullify its poisons. She moved her wrist a little to make sure nothing else was wrong, and then threw the cloth away. She proceeded to walk out of the carriage and continue her errands for the day. The pond outside her palace was not too big. 2 days later, the bottom of the pond was already visible. Gu Shijio and her people stood by the pond, looking at the bottom of the pond that had almost dried up. They were astounded. There were up to a few hundreds of fish in the pond. The fishes were leaping reluctantly in the mud, where a few fine bones were separated from each other. How many were there? The pond was where Rong Che had created malicious spirits in the past. He got people into the pond to be fed by the dangerous fish, to transform into malicious spirits for his later leverage. The white bones at the bottom of the pond were the best proof. Cold sweat emerged from Gu's Zygia's hands. She had known Rong Che before, and once when she visited him, they had lingered while chatting by that pond. She even washed her hands in the pond. So she had been so close to death once. If Rong Che was planning to kill her, he would simply push her into the water. Then, she would be one of the white bones right now. It was weird that so many people had been murdered in the pond. The place should have a huge amount of malicious spirits, but she did not even realize anything as she was walking by it. Were the malicious spirits removed by Rong Che after he had utilized it? This person looked gentle and charismatic and was once known as the leader among the other 4 princes in town. Who would think that he was such an evil person? Di Fuya's shadow emerged in her mind. Gu Shijio thought to herself that there must be a reason why he suddenly decided to wander around the palace. Was he deliberately reminding her to be careful of the cannibalistic pond? Was he good to her? Was it true? Her heart swayed like a wave. She suddenly had the urge to see him. She did not know why she wanted to see him, but the urge was not capable of being suppressed once it emerged. She took in a breath of air. She would have the opportunity to meet him one day. The fact that Rong Che was a demon was made a secret by Rong Jialuo, who saw his relationship with the man as a reason for him to do so. No one else among the people knew of it. Many servants were shocked seeing so many corpses in the pond. They thought that it was counterfeit celestial master's was good deed. Gu Shijio did not say anything in particular besides ordering people to get rid of the dangerous fish from the pond and burn them all in flames. Then, she ordered them to collect the corpses and bones to be buried. Time flew by quickly. In the glimpse of an eye, it had been 5 months. Published at 17th of February, 2019, 12 o'clock and 4 seconds p.m., Chapter 1615. 1615, that 5 months were uneventful. The Haoyue Kingdom had rebuilt their kingdom. Their land was initially occupied by the Zhaoyang Kingdom and the Feishan Kingdom, but under the Lord's order, both kingdoms gave up a large part of their land. Although the land that the Haoyue Kingdom received was not as big as before, building up a kingdom became possible again. Qian Lingyu was appointed as the emperor of the Haoyue Kingdom on the basis of his strong family background. Besides that, Qian Lingyu was influential at Tianju Hall and had a good relationship with Gu Shijio. Hence, the people and royals of the Haoyue Kingdom would oblige. To add to the fact that he was appointed by the Lord, his orders were followed without opposition. The Haoyue kingdom almost got ruined once. It had been deserted until its recent rebirth. As a result, Qian Lingyu was extremely busy. Although he did not clearly understand the ethics of an emperor, he was smart, and his family was full of strategists who would plan for him. He was also hardworking and willing to learn. Hence, it was also improbable for him to be a failed emperor. Besides that, all battles had subsided, and the people were finally able to rest at ease. Over the past 5 months, Gu Shizhou never got to meet Di Fui. It was as if he had disappeared without a trace. Although she did not get to meet him, Gu Shizhou had become reputable over the past few months, almost diminishing that of Celestial Master Zhua. Wherever Gu Shizhou went, there would be a huge welcome. When the people encountered a problem, they would no longer think of Di Fui. In fact, had no one deliberately mentioned him, no one would even think of him. That was how the world worked. If a person were unable to be substituted by someone, the people would never forget him or her. However, if someone else could replace that person, with time, they would be gradually disappearing in the people's hearts. Gu Shizhou was very busy every single day, so the 5 months almost passed without notice. It was as if she had stepped out of the gloom of the relationship. She had been meeting one friend after another. Sometimes, she even went out for a respite in the countryside with her friends. She no longer failed to fall asleep. She slept well, and could mostly sleep soundly until the break of dawn. Of course, she needed to sleep in a white jade carriage, as she would have insomnia being elsewhere. There was no insurmountable obstacle in the world, and there was nothing which time could not bring away. Luo Zhanyu was pleased seeing Gu Zijia's change. Even after being betrayed, she pulled herself together. She could be thinking of living a good life to prove to the heartbreaker that she could be without him, and she could live well without him. Gu Shizhou was now focused on improving herself. She knew that she should build up her influence. Under her support, Baileys started leading the Insher clan, and the laborers within the clan were the people she had brought out of the prohibited area. The senior masters were of level 9 and above. As a result, many were eager to learn from them. Within only a couple of months, they had received a few hundred apprentices, hence becoming a very well-known group. In time, that group would be able to exert its authority over other large groups. Although the Insher clan's overlord was Bailey Su, everyone's invisible boss was still Gu Shizhou. They would always ask for her decision at critical times. This clan was the group most loyal to Gu Zijiu and was the most reliable support for her. Published at 18th of February, 2019, 12:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1616. 1616 speaking of Gu Zijia's influence. Although she did not admit to being part of the mermaid tribe, the king of the mermaids still recognized her as his sister. He would visit Gu Zijia's palace and linger a while once every couple of months. Of the 3 kingdoms, 2 of the emperors were her friends. For this reason, the emperor of the Zhaoyang kingdom did not want to be isolated. He often sent in messengers to rally for a good relationship. A couple of Heaven's Gift disciples, except for Hua Wuyin, would always concede to her, and the rest had a good relationship with her as well. As for Hua Wuyin, she was only upset by the fact that Gu Shizhou had robbed Di Fui of his influence. However, she did not bring trouble to Gu Shizhou either. In short, Gu Shizhou had fared well these days. She looked pretty blissful. It was a new year again. Things were merry. Having gone through wars in recent times, they found peace extremely precious now. The first peaceful year needed to be celebrated merrily without compromise. Gu Zijia's Celestial Master Palace was rather merry as well. It was heavily decorated, and everyone was happy. Gu Shiqian almost had the wrinkle on his face disappear after having smiled for the entire day. Sorting out matters within the palace had been quite an easy task for him. Although the journey towards getting his wife back was still uneventful, it was good that Luo Xingluan no longer held up a stern face in front of him and could occasionally talk to him a little. Although they had only been talking about matters of their children, he was pleased enough. As Gu Shizhou was a professional alchemist, she would always provide him with some rare supplements. As a result, Gu Zhaishan's spiritual power improved immensely. Even his face had some changes. He now looked younger and more energetic. Although his son did not recognize him as his father, they would still meet each other very often. Gu Shietian always tried his best to speak to Luo Zhanyu and would stand up for many things for him. Hence, making Luo Zhanyu feel sorry to be indifferent towards such a father. So he would occasionally talk to Gu Shietian a little. To sum up, everything was changing for the better. At noon on New Year's Eve, Rong Jialua set up a sumptuous dinner to treat all his ministers. He had invited all his influential people over for a glorious gathering. Since they were invitated from the emperor, everyone turned up except for Celestial Master Zhua. Even Long Sai was there. The presence of so many people was rather uncommon. Everyone celebrated and cheered as they were holding their glasses of beer. Gu Shijio was sitting on a mat, looking at the hall filled with people. She suddenly felt a sense of solitude and isolation. She knew everyone in the hall, but the person who she subconsciously wanted to meet was not there. Why was everyone there but not him? Darn. She sat still on her mat, with a smile on her lips while drinking beer that others offered her. She would also laugh at listening to the jokes made by the people by her side. She drank another glass of beer again. Looking around the hall filled with flowers, she was suddenly afraid. Was it the life she would be living later on? It was blazing hot in the hall, but instead, she felt an unspeakable cold. The setting was all fancy, but Gu Shijio was overwhelmed by a feeling of solitude. There was a feeling of loneliness amidst the luxury. She was cold to her bones. Di Fui, without you I am still faring well with my life, but I am not sure about yours. Where are you lingering around now? You have attempted in every way to bring Lan Jinka back to life. She has not been revived. Are you in great despair? Published at 18th of February, 2019, 6 o'clock and 9 seconds am. Chapter 1617. 1617, have you given up? Or are you waiting for something? Di Fui, where are you? Things seem good for me. I have power, status, connections, friends. All of them are around me. Countless people envy me, and a myriad people who worship me. But why can't I be happy? I still feel like crying when I dream about you at night. Di Fui, I want you to see what I have built and achieved. Di Fui, I miss you. If you come back, I will return this body to you. I don't want to owe you anything. She drank liquor one mouthful after another, and she rarely refused any drink that was given to her. Unsurprisingly, she had been feeling tipsy. Shijio, you can't drink anymore. A hand stretched over and held her wrist that was holding a cup of beer. She turned and saw the face of Long Sai. You will be drunk if you continue drinking. Long Sai took away the glass in her hand. Although Gu Shijio intended to indulge herself in being drunk, she knew her drinking ability too well. It was terrible. It was not proper if she was drunk and misbehaved here. Therefore, she took the opportunity to say goodbye to Rong Jialua and said that she was not feeling well. She was now the National Celestial Master, and her status was very honorable. No one would stop her if she wanted to leave. Rong Jialua and the group of ministers stood up and sent her out. Before she walked out of the main hall, there was a report from outside. The custodian of Celestial Masters, Mu Jian, has arrived. Mu Jian stepped into the main hall. He represented Celestial Master Zhua to send his regards. He also brought Chinese New Year presents to everyone there, except for Emperor Rong Jialua, who got a jade scepter and a black iron sword. Everyone else got the same presents, which were a jade teapot set. Celestial Master Zhua never gave people cheap stuff. The teapot was made of a special jade, which was very delicate and exquisite. Gifts were issued according to a list, so there would not be any mistake. Gu Shijio also got a small teapot set, which was no different from others. When Mu Jian issued her the gift, he wanted to say something but felt a little bit embarrassed. In his heart, even if his own master and Gu Shijio had broken up, they used to be lovers. At the very least, he should have given her a more special gift. Mu Jian felt like wanted to buy something else to give to Gu Shijio on behalf of Celestial Master Zhua. However, he could not go against the order of the Lord. Gu Shijio looked at other people's gifts and then looked at her own. She smiled. Please send my thanks to your master." She then put the jade teapot into her sleeve and strode out. The wind outside was wildly harsh on Chinese New Year's Eve. Most people were busy at home, so there were not many pedestrians on the street. When the wind blew, the drunken feeling started to take its effects on Gu Shijio. She could not see clearly and had blurry eyes. She seemed to see Di Fui vaguely. Her transport was still waiting outside. When she walked out, her servants and driver came forward to carry her. Gu Shijio felt fluster in her heart and did not want to sit in her ride. She asked the driver to leave first, and she tried to walk in the snow to release her tipsiness. The driver followed her instruction and left while Gu Shijio proceeded to walk alone on the street. Her dress fluttered in the wind. Since she reached such a high level of spiritual power, she was not afraid of any coldness anymore. She was only wearing a jade white sheer dress on her right now. Published at 18th of February, 2019, 1:25 and 21 seconds p.m., Chapter 1618. 1618 at first, Gu Shijio had a coat on her shoulders. However, she was feeling too hot, so she took it off and threw it into her storage space. She took out the jade teapot and turned it around on her hand. She sneered. Was he trying to send her a message by giving this teapot to her? Did he want her to know that she was now at the same level as his regular counterparts? Well, the last time he treated her as a passerby. This time, he finally gave her a gift as respect to her status. She was finally comparable to the people around her. Should she be happy? Di Fui, thank you for your comfort. Gu Shijio threw the jade teapot into the air, but when it fell, there was an outstretched hand that caught it. Gu Shijio looked to the side and noticed that the person beside her was wearing a white robe. It was Long Sai. You don't want it? Long Sai asked her. Gu Shijio grabbed the jade teapot over and laughed. Why not? This is probably worth a lot of money. I'm having a financial crisis now, so it is not a bad idea to sell it for money. She turned and saw a pawn shop not far away on the street and walked toward the shop. Let's sell this and use the money to buy a drink. Long Sai remained silent, but he followed her. The pawn shop did not operate on Chinese New Year Eve. Fortunately, the shopkeeper was inside the shop. Gu Shijio forcibly opened the door and put the jade teapot on the counter. Boss, how much is this jade teapot? I want to sell it. The shopkeeper was initially upset by her actions, but when he saw the jade teapot, his eyes brightened up. He turned the jade teapot round and round to examine it, and then finally offered a price. 1,000 ingots. Gu Shijio did not negotiate. Okay, deal. The shopkeeper rushed to issue her a receipt and passed 1,000 ingots of paper notes to Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio picked up the paper notes and generously patted Long Sai's shoulder. Let's go. I will buy you drink. Long Sai took out the jade teapot he got and put it on the counter together with Gu Zijia's teapot. I also want to sell mine. The shopkeeper looked at the jade teapot that Long Sai placed on the table. It seemed the same as the one Gu Shijio sold, and the material also looked almost the identical. The shopkeeper pondered a bit before answering. This one is also worth 1,000 ingots. Long Sai smiled and also accepted a few paper notes worth 1,000 ingots from the shopkeeper. The two left the shop side by side. The shopkeeper was excited. The teapot that Gu Shijio had sold away was made by a very rare crystal jade. The unique ability of this jade was that it could transform ordinary wine poured into it to become high-quality wine. The wine would help in soothing and blood circulation. If someone were in a bad mood, he or she could be quickly calmed down with a glass of wine from this pot. This kind of jade was worth a lot, even if it was a fingernail in size. Not to mention that it was now the size of a full teapot. The shopkeeper had been traveling around in his early days and had the privilege of knowing this jade, so he could recognize it. Although Long Sai's teapot looked the same as Gu Zijia's, it was indeed a normal jade teapot. Although it was also worth a lot of money, it was nothing compared with Gu Zijia's teapot. The shopkeeper did not want to alert the two of them, as he was afraid that Gu Shijio would change her mind. After the two people left, he turned the jade teapot over and over again and looked at it for a long while. He was happy and smiled to himself. He was rich now. This teapot was worth at least $1 million. There was high demand for it and very little supply. He was worried that Gu Shijio would regret when she was sober, so he planned to abandon his pawn shop and run away with the teapot. Published at 19th of February, 2019, 12:05 and 26 seconds a.m., Chapter 1619. 1619, as soon as the shopkeeper looked up, he saw a man standing at the door. The man stood under the light and was holding a green bamboo umbrella in his hand. The person under the umbrella was all white. Even his hair seemed silvery white. The individual looked like a snow sculpture. Although he did not wear a mask, his face could not be seen. The shopkeeper did not know when this person entered, so he was shocked when he saw him. The shopkeeper subconsciously put the jade teapot in his sleeve and asked, "Sir, are you coming to—" He could not finish his sentence because that person lifted his sleeve and the jade teapot in his hand flew over to him. The shopkeeper was shocked. When he was about to rush over, the snowy white man acted in lightning speed and struck the shopkeeper on his forehead with a piece of paper. He was frozen and could not move at all. After some time, he finally recovered. His legs were numb, and he fell to the ground within seconds. The piece of paper on his forehead fluttered. He subconsciously took it and saw that it was a 1,000 ingot paper note. Gu Shijio said that she wanted to buy Long Sai a drink, but it was Chinese New Year Eve, so there was no restaurant operating tonight. She walked along the street from the beginning till the end with Long Sai, but did not find any restaurant that was open. How could they not operate? She wanted to spend money, but had nowhere to spend it. Gu Shijio stood on the corner of the street. She looked at a restaurant and seemed to be pondering. Long Sai was still with her all the way, but knew that she was feeling hurt by Di Fui. He suggested, "Why don't you invite me to your house for a drink?" Gu Shijio shook her head. "My house is too crowded." Her house had too many members living there, and tonight was the few times that everyone would be home to have their reunion dinner. If she went back home, she would be surrounded by everyone, and there would be no peace for her. Long Sai pondered for a moment before giving a new suggestion. "Let's go to Tianwen Mountain." "It is too far." Gu Shijio shook her head again. Long Sai sighed. "With your current skill, it will take only 2 hours. I have great wine at my place, and you can drink freely." Gu Shijio was stunned. She pondered about his offer and finally nodded. "All right." She directly performed the ground shrinking technique and held Long Sai's hand. Two of them disappeared from the place instantly. The ground shrinking technique could shrink a land of 1,000 miles into 100 miles. Therefore, the distances of a few thousand miles have been shortened to a few hundred miles. With their speed, they took less than an hour to reach Tianwen Mountain. Back in the town, a figure stood in the snow. All one could see was his blue umbrella and long sleeves. He looked at the place where Gu Shijio and Long Sai disappeared. After standing still for a long while, he coughed and turned away. Inside the pavilion Zhuichin in the Tianwen Mountain, there was a small bamboo table with 2 bamboo chairs. There were a few dishes on the small table that were cooked by Long Sai. The wine served was the best wine in the Tianwen Mountain. The taste was also her favorite, green plum. Gu Shijio sat opposite of Long Sai. They chatted while savoring the best wine she had tasted. A few years ago, he was her instructor and she was a killer. They used to sit opposite each other. At that time, she wanted to marry him, and he was wondering how to make it happen. Unfortunately, an accident happened, and their relationship had no turning back. Now, when they were sitting opposite each other, Long Sai felt like the world separated them. "Shijio, can we start over again?" Long Sai blurted out. Published at 19th of February, 2019, 6 o'clock and 3 seconds a.m., Chapter 1620. 1620 Long Sai had initially given up on Gu Shijio, but now that she had broken up with Di Fui, did it mean that he had a chance? Was fate smiling on him right now? He had missed an opportunity before, so he did not want to miss one again. Gu Zigius was stunned, but then she continued to drink the wine. She remembered hearing that the best way to get out of a broken relationship was to get into a new one. Long Sai was her former instructor and used to be her favorite person. If she continued to be with him, could she emerge from this suffering situation? The alcohol had clouded her judgment, and her heart could not take all this drama. Gu Shijio, you are useless. He mistreats you, but you still can't forget him. You still hope to see him. Don't you feel shameful? He does not want you anymore and treats you as a stranger and an ordinary colleague. Why do you still think of him? Do you still want to be his regular friend, to see him more? Are you pathetic? You are so useless. Gu Shijio, I look down on you. Really, if you continue to think of him again, you might as well die. Her inner thoughts were discouraging her from thinking of him. However, she wanted to see him again. She thought she could see him at the banquet in the palace, but he did not come. There were many self-deprecating thoughts that swirled through her mind. She drank another glass of wine, but choked. She coughed intensely and almost teared. Longsai got up and patted her back. He also passed her a white handkerchief and let her wipe her face. Gu Shijio finally stopped coughing, but her face was now covered in tears. She wiped herself with the handkerchief and laughed. It's been a long time since I got choked. This was an intense one. She snorted and talked in a nasal voice. Her tears were still flowing, so she rubbed her eyes with her hands. Longsai looked at her for a while and sighed. Shijio, you don't have to be strong in front of me. If you want to cry, do it. Gu Shijio tried to argue. I didn't want to cry. The wine just choked me. Longsai looked at her silently. After all, they used to be very close. He naturally knew her very well. He could easily sense when she was pretending. She pretended to be okay over the past few months. Even her brother might not be able to see that she was faking it. All the people thought that she had walked out from the pain and gotten over Di Fui. However, Longsai was more aware of the truth. That was why he felt so uncomfortable. Things only got worse for him as he watched Gu Shijio deny her pain. In the end, she could not continue talking anymore. She knew that Longsai understood her and that there was no point lying anymore. Initially, Long Fan's soul was sealed in Longsai's body. However, 5 months ago, when Di Fui found Longsai, he realized that Long Fan's soul had disappeared from his body. He was not sure if he had escaped from Longsai's body or had immersed entirely in Longsai. Di Fui tried to summon Long Fan's soul, but nothing was retrieved. There were only 2 possibilities for this to happen. One option was that he was no longer in the world, and the other was that he had reincarnated and was no longer able to possess other people's body. Di Fui had marked Long Fan's soul before so that he could not possess other people's body anymore, not even on a clone. Either of these 2 was a good thing for Longsai, and it was also a good thing for the world, so Di Fui and Longsai no longer investigated this issue. Published at 20th of March, 2019, 2:30 p.m., Chapter 16, 21 Chinese New Year. Eve to Longsai told Gu Shijio about this matter. Since Gu Shijio had already broken up with Di Fui, she did not expect him to help Longsai. Later, she realized that Longsai was still a Heaven's Gift disciple. Di Fui, as the Lord, had always been a guardian to his disciples. Therefore, he had helped Longsai on his own accord. Regardless of what reason Di Fui had for helping the man, it was still very gratifying to be able to remove Long Fan, who was a tremendous hidden danger. Gu Shijio was quite happy for Longsai, as it must be difficult to know that someone else is sharing your body. In the past 5 months, she had seen Longsai several times. They even drank together twice. At that time, Longsai never pursued or courted her, but just stayed by her side. No one could persuade her on this matter. She could only rely on herself to slowly walk out from the pain. Gu Shijio was still very self-disciplined. Even though she was often sad, she did not want to cry in front of people. Whenever she felt very uncomfortable, she would find a quiet place to stay for one night, like a wounded little beast that just wanted to lick her wounds in peace. It made her a stronger person. Gu Shijio was not very good at holding her liquor. Even if she was here at Longsai's place, she did not want to let herself get drunk and lose control. She placed her hand under the table and began to dissipate the wine out of her body. After an hour, she had calmed down a lot. She sat there and pondered for a long while. Longsai sat next to her and looked at her. Gu Shijio had now buried her face deep in her arms. Long Sai could not see her face, but he could see her unspeakable loneliness. It was not a sight that he desired to witness. Shijio, you can go inside to sleep. It is quite cold here. Long Sai went forward and wanted to carry her, but he was being obstructed by a wizardry barrier that she set around her. Obviously, she did not want anyone to go close to her at this moment. Hence, Long Sai sighed and dismissed the idea of carrying her into the room to rest. Published at 20th of February, 2019, 12:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1622. 1622 Gu Shijio had a dream. In the dream, she wandered around like a wandering soul. The sky was already dark. Every family ignited the candles and lights they possessed. They also played firecrackers to celebrate Chinese New Year. The young kids were chasing after each other on the street, playing with the fireworks in their hand. There were also countless people gathered in front of the palace gate. Rongjiao was dressed in a costume and led all his officers to stand at the entrance of the city to greet the people on this festive day. Countless fireworks rose into the air and exploded in the sky. They lighted up the night sky as well as the smiles on everyone's faces. Many families brought their children to gather here. Husbands took the wives' hands, while wives took the children's hand. The family members celebrated the festive season together, and the happiness was reflected on their faces. Gu Shijio felt that she was floating in the crowd of people. No one could see her, but she could sense the joy of the people around her. Once upon a time, she used to celebrate Chinese New Year's Eve together with him. Her happiness seemed to be overflowing at that time. She only hoped that every year would be as happy as that day. However, she did not expect that her happiness was like a bubble and that it would be popped so fast. Subconsciously, she went to Celestial Master Zhu's house. The house of Celestial Master Zhu was somewhat deserted and had no festive atmosphere. Most of the maids were back home for the new year, and only a few of them were on duty. They were familiar faces to Gu Shijio. They did not notice her, even though she drifted away in front of them. From the conversation of these maids, she heard that Di Fui was at the Dingtao Pavilion attending to guests. The Dingtao Pavilion was one of the favorite places of Gu Shijio when she stayed in his house. It was a building in the middle of the mountain. It was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and surrounded by water from another side. The sides that faced mountain were filled with blue pines and cypresses. When the trees swayed, they looked like the waves on the sea, and the scenery was beautiful. Di Fui would not simply serve guests at this place, but he always brought her here to drink. Who would he be serving here now? She desperately wanted to see him. In her dreams, she could do anything she wished to. So, she went to find him. Finally, she saw him. It has been a good 5 months now, but she was shocked. His hair. Why did his hair become white now? He was wearing a light blue casual robe. His eyebrows were still majestic, while his eyes were bright like stars, and his face was still handsome. It was the face she was familiar with. The only thing different was that his black hair was now white like snow. At the same time, she also saw the guests who were served by him. They were the Lan siblings, Lan Yaoguang and Lan Jingyi. Although Lan Yaoguang had always been visiting Gu Shijio lately, Lan Jingyi had never done so. It was the first time Gu Shijio saw her in 5 months. The little girl looked at Di Fui, who was boiling tea. She looked distressed as she uttered, "Brother Huang, why did your hair turn white all of a sudden?" Di Fui was stunned for a moment. He did not speak, but continued to boil the water. Lan Yaoguang hit his sister to hint her not to bring up the matter. Lan Jingyi ignored him and pretended like she did not understand his intention. She continued to look at Di Fui and asked, "Brother Huang, is it because you are too distraught that my sister failed to come back to life? I have heard about a story whereby a loving couple who were separated from each other ended up with a head of white hair because they were too desperate to see each other." Published at 20th of February, 2019, 6:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1623. 1623 Lan Yaoguang frowned and finally stopped her. "Jingyi, don't talk nonsense. our sister has resurrected, she just refuses to admit it. No, she is not our sister. The one who resurrected is Gu Shijio. Damn, the spiritual soul is the main soul among the three. It should shape the main character of a person, while the awareness soul should only be an auxiliary soul and should not have its own consciousness. I didn't expect this little soul to have her own consciousness, as well as control the body that should belong to our sister. Because of her, our sister is not coming back anymore. Her voice was a little choked. I want my sister. I want our sister to come back. Lan Yaoguang interrupted her. Little sister, please stop talking. Shijio is reborn with our sister's soul. That means she possesses part of our sister. You can't refuse to recognize her. But I want the spiritual soul of my sister to come back. That is my real sister. Gu Shijio possesses our sister's body. Lan Yaoguang frowned. Our sister has died in the past. Her soul was supposed to be dissipated. Brother Huang has tried very hard to keep part of her memories. The rest of her memories have been scattered. It is considered lucky to get the awareness soul to reincarnate. It is impossible for the spiritual soul to remain intact. How do you want Brother Huang to get you, the complete soul of our sister? Lan Jingyi was not convinced. Since the awareness soul could be stored and reincarnated, how do you know that the spiritual soul cannot have the same process? Perhaps it has also been reincarnated. Lan Yaoguang shook his head. There is no such lucky thing. Di Fui, who had been sitting there quietly, suddenly spoke. Jingyi is right. The awareness soul cannot be treated like her sister. I will try my best to find her spiritual soul so that the real Jinka can come back. Lan Yaoguang was shocked, and Lan Jingyi's eyes lit up. Brother Huang, that means you do not recognize the current imposter as our sister Jinka, right? Di Fui sounded calm. She can't be Jinka. I have made a mistake. Lan Jingyi took a deep breath. Jingyi always knows that Brother Huang wants to let her real sister come back. She thought of something. What about the body? The little awareness soul has possessed the body that we safeguarded for a few years. Even if we can find a spiritual soul back, there is nowhere to let her soul reborn. Di Fui looked up for a moment, then gently said, It's all right. The overlord of the Tianwen clan, Long Sai, can create a clone body. Once we are more confident of retrieving the spiritual soul of Jinka, I will ask Long Sai to recreate a similar body so that Jinka can be resurrected. Lan Jingyi felt touched. I always knew that Brother Huang really misses our sister Jinka. You have planned for her resurrection for 1,000 years. Sai, you have been working hard and waiting for so many years. In the end, you let Gu Shijio take advantage of it. You must be extremely sad, and that is why your hair turned white. Di Fui raised his hand and took a sip of tea. He did not speak. Lan Jingyi seemed to think of something again. Oh yeah, if our sister really comes back to life in the future, what should we do with the counterfeit Gu Shijio? Di Fui softly answered, Don't worry about her. I will treat her as a stranger in the future and will not pamper her as Jinka. Lan Jingyi looked dissatisfied. It's just too beneficial to her. Well, forget it, as long as Brother Huang doesn't like her anymore. Otherwise, when my real sister Jinka wakes up, she will be very sad. Published at 20th of February, 2019, 12 o'clock and 4 seconds p.m., Chapter 1624. 1624D, Fui raised his glass. Don't worry. I only have Jinka in my heart. Everyone else means nothing to me. But she is reincarnated with Sister's awareness soul. If she is alive, when Sister is back, she would not have a complete soul. Di Fui calmly answered. Since the awareness soul can be reincarnated alone, the spiritual soul can also do the same. Don't worry, to prevent another accident. I will help Jinka to build a new awareness soul so that she will have complete consciousness. Lan Jingyi was obviously getting happier as the night progressed. I know that Brother Huang is very sincere to our sister. If that is the case, there should not be any mistakes in the future. She stood up and looked at the blue pine outside the room. The name of this place is Pavilion. Jingyi knows that her brother-in-law is crazy about her sister. so she is foolproof. She stood up and looked at the sea of blue outside the attic. This place is called Ding Tao Pavilion, and the blue pines look like the sea. You have been yearning for the sea. Ting Tao, sounds like you always want to listen to the sea. I know that sister also liked to listen to the sea in the past when she was still alive. The three of them continued to chat and enjoyed the tea inside the pavilion. It looked like a beautiful portrait when they sat there. Gu Shijio was hidden in the dark. She listened and watched everything that happened in the pavilion, and her body turned cold. He became white-headed because he missed Lan Jinka too much. He only had Lan Jinka in his heart. He was like Yanghua in the God of the Condor Heroes, who had been waiting for the little dragon girl for 16 years. In the end, he did not manage to see her, and his hair turned white overnight. While Di Fui had been waiting for Lan Jinka for 1,000 years, at the end the one who resurrected was Gu Shijio instead of Lan Jinka, whom he missed the most. Thus his hair also turned white. It turned out that Di Fui was only good to her was because she was the awareness soul of Lan Jinka. He treated her as part of Lan Jinka. Now, he finally understood that she was not Lan Jinka, so he treated her as a stranger. Without the identity of Lan Jinka, she was no one in his heart. Her heart felt like it was being filled with water. It was swelling up. She only felt her legs were weakened. Suddenly she was stunned, and then she seemed to be falling from a high-rise building. She was awake. She trembled and opened her eyes. She was now surrounded by white bamboo, rattan chairs, and ancient wooden tables. She saw Long Sai and heard a piano playing. She looked outside. The sky was already dark. There were no stars on the eve. She was lying on a soft couch and covered with a soft quilt, so she did not feel cold. She then looked at the hourglass in the corner. It was already 4 in the morning, and it was near to the dawn. This New Year's Eve was about to pass. Long Sai was playing the piano that she heard. The sound of the piano was melodious like a lullaby, which made people feel calm. No wonder she heard this sound in her dreams. It turned out to be the music played by Long Sai. She remembered that when she fell asleep, the sun was just about to set. It was such a long dream. Fortunately, no matter what nightmare it was, she was able to wake up from it. Her heart had drowned, but the mind was conscious. Are you awake? Are you thirsty? Do you want some water? Long Sai finally stopped and passed a glass of water to her. He inadvertently touched her fingers, and he frowned. How can your hands so cold? He wanted to check her pulse. Gu Shijio chuckled and avoided his hand. I have a cold body. My hands and feet can easily get cold. I am fine. After all, she woke up after drinking alcohol, so she was a little thirsty. She swallowed the full glass of water. It was warm, sweet honey water, so when it flowed into the throat, it warmed up her body a lot. Published at 21st of February, 2019, 12:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1625. 1625 Long Sai looked at Gu Zijia's face. Although she looked quite pale, there was nothing wrong with her, so he was less worried. He jokingly asked her, "What did you dream of?" "You said in your sleep." "What did I say when I slept?" "I could not hear it clearly, but you mumbled a lot." Gu Shijio rubbed her eyebrows. "I didn't know I talked in my sleep." "Well, it was just a dream." She looked at him again and asked, "Have you been playing the piano for me?" Long Sai smiled. "I suddenly felt like playing the piano. Since it is Chinese New Year's Eve, I can take this opportunity to stay up for the new year." "Did I disturb your sleep?" Gu Shijio stretched her body and sat up. "Of course not. Your music is quite hypnotic. It doesn't sound like praise, but it is an accomplishment to be able to make you sleep soundly." Two of them talked and laughed for a while. Gu Shijio looked around and noticed that Long Sai was quite caring. This pavilion was initially an ordinary pavilion. Now, to let her sleep here, he especially set up a canopy for her. No wonder she felt warm. She never expected to celebrate her Chinese New Year's Eve at this place. However, it was quite a meaningful night. Gu Shijio was no longer sleepy, so she got up and asked Long Sai to go back to rest. However, Long Sai refused to go. "It is quite common that I don't sleep for a few nights. Moreover, I still have to stay up for the new year. If you feel bored, why don't we play chess?" He pulled out a chessboard and pointed to it. "Please, Gu Shijio was quite good at playing chess. In the past, she used to challenge Long Shi. Both of their skills were comparable with each other, so they had won and lost to each other before. It was a long and quiet night, so it was a good time to play chess. Thus, Gu Shijio agreed to play with him. Long Sai found that she was not in good condition when she played in the game tonight. She kept losing pieces and did not have any strategy. Playing chess was like battling in war. One could easily expose their state of mind to their opponent based on their style of play. Long Sai could see that Gu Shijio had a confused mind now. Both of them played a few matches, and Gu Shijio lost all the games. She was bombarded several times by Long Sai. Gu Shijio rubbed her forehead that was already reddish. She looked to the outside and said, "Finally, the day has arrived." Long Sai gazed at her. "Yes, no matter how dark the night is, there will always be a bright day coming after." Gu Shijio smiled. It sounds like a motivational quote. Since when did you become a motivational guru? Both of them chatted for a while before Gu Shijio suddenly looked up and asked Long Sai, "How was the clone body I asked you to make?" Long Sai was stunned and said, "It is almost finished." He sized Gu Shijio up. He had realized that Gu Zijia's current body was her original body. There was nothing wrong with it. 5 months ago, Gu Shijio found Long Sai and asked him to create a clone for her. At the time, Long Sai was very puzzled and asked her what she was trying to do. She did not answer him. She only said that it might be useful in the future. Long Sai would never reject her, so he made it for her. He was more skilled in making a clone body now, so he managed to create one in 5 months. Gu Shijio stood up and said, "Bring me there." It was a familiar ice room with a familiar crystal coffin. A familiar face lied inside the crystal coffin. Gu Shijio stood in front of the crystal coffin and looked at the beauty in it. Published at 21st of February, 2019, 6:05 and 4 seconds a.m., Chapter 1626. 1626, the clone that lied in front of her was much stronger than the one made by Long Sai in the past. It could be compared with the one made by Long Fan, or it could be even stronger. The spiritual power of this body was already level 8. It was a very rare existence. Gu Shijio stared at herself in the coffin and had a bitter smile. She was originally a clone soul. Perhaps she should belong to a clone body after all. She asked Long Sai, "Would it be easy for me to enter this clone body?" Long Sai was shocked. He immediately took her wrist and checked her vein. After a while, he released her. "Your current body is perfect and has no problem. Why do you want to change it?" Did she think that changing her body was like changing clothes? Gu Shijio looked down. She did not know why she had this crazy idea. Di Fui always wanted Lan Jinka to be resurrected and blamed Gu Shijio for possessing this body and asked her to let it go. Although this body was the original body of the daughter of General Gu, Di Fui also spent a great effort to upgrade it to level 10 even when the body was asleep. Moreover, this original body was engaged to Di Fui in the past. In that case, this original body had a great relationship with Di Fui, so she should just let it go for him. Since they had already broken up, everything should completely be cleared off. After she returned the original body and entered into the clone body, she owed him nothing anymore in the future and would not have any relationship with him. Perhaps after changing her body, she would be able to completely get out of this heartbreaking love and be a brand new self. She did not want to explain her thoughts to Long Sai. She just looked at him seriously and asked, "Can you change it?" Long Sai had a headache and sighed. "You can change it. However, you are now at level 10 spiritual power, and the spiritual power of this body is only level 8. If you change it now, your spiritual power would deteriorate badly." "It's fine. I can work hard again." Long Sai shook his head. This can't be achieved easily by only practicing. Gu Shijio managed to achieve a level 10 spiritual power due to many external factors that could not be replicated. For example, the core array that was full of spiritual power, the double physical and spiritual cultivation she did with Di Fui, the rare herbs that Di Fui collected for her, as well as the guidance that Di Fui had provided her. With all these factors, she could upgrade from level 8 to level 10 in 8 years, and it was an entirely rare case in this continent. Although Long Sai and the other Heaven's Gift disciples had gotten the best resources and the best way to cultivate spiritual power, they still spent decades to upgrade to level 9. Gu Shijie was smart, but if she changed to a new clone body again, she would probably need to spend decades to reach level 9 from level 8. As for level 10, it would depend on fate. She would probably need to take a few hundred years, or perhaps would not be able to achieve that level in her lifetime. Shijie, your original body is still the best. If there is nothing important, don't simply change it. With your current level 10 body, you could be immortal and maintain the young looks forever. If you change bodies, even if you practice to level 9, you can live for only 1,000 years at most. Long Sai tried to persuade her. Immortal? Gu Shijie smirked. She had no interest in immortality. She thought that 1,000 years was already far too long. Instructor Long, I don't think about being immortal. I just want to be in a body that is owned by me. If it is possible, I would like to swap to it shortly. Published at 21st of February, 2019, 12:05 and 4 seconds p.m., Chapter 1627. 1627, there were still some memories of Lan Jinka in this original body. Gu Shijie did not want to have these memories. She did not want to share the same body as his lover. It would always remind her that she was only a substitute for Lan Jinka. Long Sai persuaded her again. He almost listed a comprehensive list of the disadvantages of changing her body. However, Gu Shijie had made up her mind and insisted on it. In the end, Long Sai had no choice but to agree to change her body. However, because of the unique features of her soul, it would easily hurt her soul if she continuously changed bodies. It would even make her soul dissipate a little. To be secure, it was necessary to use a kind of herbal fruit as a complement. This kind of herb was very rare. It grew on volcanoes and could only be harvested once in a few years. Whenever it cropped, it only lasted for a few days. Once the seed was collected, it had to be used within a month. Otherwise, its benefits would diminish. Fortunately for Gu Shijie, this herb was going to be harvested very soon. When the time came, Long Sai would pick it personally, and he would help Gu Shijie to achieve the outcome she desired. Once they arranged for a viable date to get this done, Gu Shijie returned to her own house. She did not intend to tell the Fui about this matter. She would just deliver the original body back to Celestial Master's house. Her family members were worried about her since she did not return to her home for the whole night. Gu Xietian and the rest were busy looking for her, and when they saw her return, they felt relieved. Gu Xietian asked, "Jior, where have you been? Everyone has been looking for you. Last night, I went to Celestial Master's house, but he was not there. His servant said he did not go back at all." He did not go back at all? In her dream last night, she clearly saw that he was serving the land's sibling at Pavilion. Other people's dreams might be just dreams, but her dreams were often real. It was actually her soul that left her body, so everything she saw was all real. The reason why the servant said that he was not back was that he did not want to let Gu Xietian disturb him anymore. After all, everything he had done was indicating that he treated Gu Shijie as a stranger. "Father, I have nothing to do with him anymore. In the future, if you want to look for me, you should stop going to his house," Gu Shijie said in a serious tone. Even if she were going to die, she would never go to Celestial Master's house anymore. So she also would not want her family members to go there as well. Gu Xietian knew that she was serious about it. He kept silent. He nodded and continued to ask Gu Shijie where she had spent the night. Gu Shijie simply answered, "I went to the Tianwen clan for a drink. I had drunk quite a lot, so I decided to spend a night there." Gu Ziyishan had actually been worried about her daughter's marriage. After listening to what Gu Shijie said, he had an idea in his mind. In fact, the overlord of the Tianwen clan was a perfect match for his daughter. He would like to get more information from his daughter. However, he also noticed that his daughter did not look good and did not want to talk more about it. So he stopped asking her questions for now. He planned to ask Long Sai when he met him face to face. In fact, As compared to the mysterious Di Fui, Gu Xietian was more interested with Long Sai, who was quite capable and had a more mature character. Di Fui's character was like the sea. He was mysterious, and his mood always changed. He could pick up huge waves and send people into the abyss at any time. Long Sai was more like a mountain. He was quiet and steady. He was straightforward and reliable. He also had a deep affection for his daughter. If his daughter married him, he would definitely pamper her a lot. Women should always look for a suitable husband. It was only considered a complete life if both the husband and wife can work together for a lifetime. This was always the mindset of Gu Xietian. It was now his top priority to help his daughter to get a good family. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.